ABC Sydney acknowledges Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples as the traditional custodians of lands, waterways and skies across Australia. Today, we pay respects to elders past and present and recognise the contribution of all First Nations peoples.
This is Breakfast with James Valentine on ABC Radio Sydney.
Yes, hello, good morning, how are you? Welcome to the day. Oh yeah, it's February. It's the 1st of February. Can't even say it anymore. February. I feel like I'm putting a whole other syllable in there. I feel like I did it by mistake to start with and now I can't get rid of. February. February? That sounds wrong. Second month of the year, 2023, and it's the very first day. Wednesday. Don't we do this all the year? But doesn't it just seem like it can't be February already? We can't have zipped through January already, have we? Yes, we have. And there's only 28 days in this one, so whew, it'll be gone. Good morning, good to be with you here this morning and looking forward to everything we're going to talk about here today. What are we looking at the moment? It's about 20 everywhere. I think it's been about 20 everywhere at this time for the day for about a month. So let's just assume it's about 20 everywhere, okay? If you're somewhere, it's 20. And what we're looking at today is a top of 28 in the city and about 32 in the west. So it's going to be warm, mostly sunny. Might be a little chance of a shower, could be a thunderstorm in the west during this afternoon and evening. But a hot one, a hot, sticky February day. Just what do you get used to and usually happens at this time. Here in Sydney at this part of the year. Very good morning and good to be with you here today. Just taking a quick look at the traffic. There's some road damage on Gary Road from Sir Bertram Stevens Drive in the Royal National Park. That's been going on for a little while. Landslide, yes, there's nothing actually that current. These are all, I was looking for current traffic incidents, but these are all sort of ongoing things. It's interesting though, isn't it? These are all things, problems that have been there for couple of years following fires and floods. John Island Cays Road, still a problem in a few areas there. But no, nothing in particular to report right now, according to Live Traffic New South Wales. And I get going now. Go, quick, roads are good, get moving. Good morning, good to be with you. That was, a sad moment in the news there. The death of John Pickup, they were talking about there. The brushman of the bush, Eric Minchin, Pro Hart, Jack Absalom, Hugh Schultz and John Pickup. He was the last surviving one. Have you got those works? These were so popular in the probably 60s and 70s. Everyone had a Pro Hart. I think it was compulsory. You put it next to your sort of your bottle of Manchester Rosé and a kind of brass-looking candle holder or sort of Spanish poster. You'd have your Pro Hart painting there. They were lovely paintings and very, very popular throughout Australia and the world. So if you've got one, send us a quick pic. You still remember these? Well, if you could send us a photo, but you can pretend that you've sent us a photo. Or just let me know. 0467 922 702. And it's a reminder of another thing from that time that's still around. I was astonished to learn this yesterday. In fact, the very last Boeing 747, which rolled off the production line at the end of last year, has been delivered to its customer. It'll be flying. It's the last one ever made, the last one to go off the production line. The first was delivered in about 1970. Test flights were about 1969, was sort of announced from the mid-60s onwards. But the first Boeing 747 was delivered in 1970, over 50 years ago. The last one has just been delivered. This is like you could go into a showroom right now and buy a Holden Monaro. Like, it's bizarre, isn't it? This is like you could go and buy a Volkswagen Beetle. That's what this is. It's still around. They might have put the computer in it, I think, and possibly the seat belts. But otherwise, it's a Boeing 747. It's exactly the same. This is as though you still dial up your friends on a rotary phone, invite them around for fondue, and listen to the new album from the Carpenters on your stereogram. That's what it'd be still like if it was still there. So a pretty remarkable thing. And one of the most transformative pieces of technology that of the 20th century. You know, we talk about the computer and we talk about, mobile phones and these sort of things as how transformative they were. The Boeing 747 meant that we could all fly. Flying became so much cheaper. Flying stopped being something you only did once in a lifetime, only something available for the very wealthy, and became something that was achievable by the middle class, and you could save up enough money and go. Young people suddenly went, you know what, if I get $2,000 together, I can go to London. I can fly off to London. It was a remarkably transformative piece of technology across the world, the Boeing 747. So farewell. Last one. I don't know where the oldest one is that's still flying. If anyone knows that, is there a 1970s Boeing 747 getting around somewhere? 0467 922 702 is our number. That's our number if you've been listening to overnights. We're 0467 922 702. You can call us direct on 1300 222 702. What were we listening to? Well, we were listening to the Carpenters in 1972. This is a very popular tune in Australia. Mungo Jerry had the hit in the US, in the UK. Here, the Mixtures took us to the summertime.
In the summertime, when the weather is high, you can stretch right up and touch the sky. When the weather's fine, you got women on your mind. Have a drink, have a drive, go out and see what you can find. If a daddy's rich, take her out for a meal. If a daddy's poor, just do what you feel. Scoot along the lake, do a tunnel or return at 25. When the sun goes down, you can make it good and really fine. We're all friendly, we love daddy, well I mean, we love everybody, cause we do as we please. When the weather's fine, we go fishing or go swimming in the sea. We're always happy, life's for living, yeah, that's our philosophy. Sing along with us, dee-dee-dee-dee-dee, da-dee-da-da-da, yeah, we're happy. Da-da-da, dee-dee-da-da-da-da-da-da. Da-da-da-da-da, da-da-da-da-da-da. All right, all right. When the winter's here, yeah, it's party time. Bring a bottle with you, Mac, cause it'll soon be summertime. And we'll sing again, we'll go driving, or maybe we'll settle down. If she's rich, if she's nice, bring your friends and we'll all go with the town. The summertime, when the weather is fine, you can stretch right up and touch the sky. When the weather's fine, you got women on your mind. Have a drink, have a drive, go out and see what you can find. Sing along with us, dee-dee-dee-dee-dee, da-da-da-da-da, yeah, we're happy.
The Mixtures. Imagine if that was still the music of now. Well, that's what it's like that the 747's still around. I mean, we're not all flying 747s, I know, and it's a very different plane, but still, it's a reasonable excuse to do that. These are the top 10 Australian songs of 1970. Knock, knock, who's there? Could this be love is calling? Raindrops Keep Falling on My Head by Johnny Farnham, as he was then. Old Man Emu, John Williamson. Let me tell you about a thing or two with an old man emu. Smiley, It's off to the Asian War, Ronnie Burns. Two Little Boys, Rolf Harris. I Thank You, Lionel Rose. I want to thank you for just me and you. Yellow River by Autumn/Jigsaw. Yellow River, Yellow River. 1970 must be the first year that I was actually really listening. I'm 9. I was 9 years old. Is that the first year that I would have gone, oh, 3XY, I can hear that. I'm listening to it. All those songs are stuck exactly and completely in my head. I think I can sing them all the way through. Very good morning. Good to be with you here on ABC Radio Sydney. It's 14 minutes to 6. The big story from yesterday was the fact that the Board of Clubs New South Wales sacked CEO Josh Landis. Mr Landis had come under fire for suggesting that the Premier Dominic Perrottet was basing decisions around gambling reform on his Catholic faith. In fact, the word he used was older than that. His Catholic gut, he said. One New South Wales politician facing pressure because of her stance on gaming reform is Helen Dalton, independent MP for Murray. She's talked to Richard Glover, and we'll have a listen to that, but we'll also follow some of this during the morning. You might have some reaction to the removal of CEO Josh Landis. Does it reset the discussion? Does it reset the debate in this area about problem gambling? I mean, the Clubs New South Wales, as represented by Josh Landis, had seemed belligerent and opposed to any potential reform, opposed to any sort of opposed to it even recognising that there was any problem to be dealt with. There was a very strange press release after the Crime Commission brought out their findings about money laundering, where the Clubs New South Wales, hooted that there was no problem, despite the fact that the Crime Commission was saying that there was. So I wonder whether this resets the discussion in this area or not, and you might have some views. If you're a club person, happy to hear from you. You're a keen club goer. You work in the clubs. What's your reaction? 0467 922 702 is our text line, or you can call us on 1300 222 702. Here's Helen Dalton talking to Richard Glover.
It's not Mr Landis's first rodeo. And, of course, he sidelined me for supporting gambling reform with intimidation and bullying tactics by placing a photo of me at the entrance of most clubs in my electorate. And in some clubs in my own town, a life-size photo. So it's as you're walking in, you see me and telling everyone that, I'm doing the wrong thing by asking for reform.
What does it say on the sign, apart from your picture?
Oh, it says it's the wrong way to go about things. You shouldn't be doing that. And I think I'm not sure about the fine print whether they're going to be third-party campaigners. I think they are, and actively try and remove me from my seat.
Because, of course, there's been a lot said. Labor, for instance, has said they've said they won't directly accept any money from Clubs New South Wales, which is a good thing, good on them. But that, of course, doesn't stop Clubs New South Wales from entering election campaigns as a third party and campaigning, against the Liberal candidate, against the independent candidate, against whoever they don't like.
That's exactly right, and they'll try and do their best to remove me. And I guess that's their prerogative to do that. But what I do disagree with is the intimidation and bullying with the photo. And lots of people have contacted me, and I was warned by a Labor MP in the federal government that said, you watch, this is what they'll do to you. And that's exactly what they've done.
How does it feel? Has it changed the way people react to you on Australia? You live in a smallish community. Has it changed the way people react to you when you go shopping and so forth?
Look, I've had overwhelming support from people here. People come up to me. They're either waiting for me at my office or giving me an email. We've been inundated with calls and messages supporting what I'm doing. So they tell me to keep going, which I will. You
don't feel physically intimidated? You don't feel a bit frightened that your image is being used in this way?
A lot of people are warning me. No, I don't. I live in a rural area, and I live out in a farm, and I'm quite safe, and I don't think anything will happen to me. But I get plenty of warnings from people because they've heard of some of the tactics or supposedly, allegedly, that Clubs New South Wales have done in the past. Did you, when this all started, did you think, oh, cripes, I've made a mistake, I should have towed the line? No, I did I co-sponsored a forum in Parliament just to highlight the issues with gambling. And from that, I just thought, oh well, that's fine. And we did a story in the paper, and I think that Clubs New South Wales decided that they'd teach me a lesson and just target me. And I think targeting me because I'm the only female independent in the New South Wales Parliament, and they perhaps thought that I'd back off or I'd be intimidated, but I'm not like that. I'll stand by what I think's right and what my electorate thinks is correct.
New South Wales Independent MP for Murray, Helen Dalton, talking to Richard Glover after the sacking yesterday of CEO of Clubs New South Wales, Josh Landis.
Josh Seps, telling your stories.
Pamela in Collaroy, what are you the queen of?
I think that at 91, I'm pretty good at reverse parking a car.
Wonderful.
I can only reverse park a car. If I go in frontwards, I knock everybody else. I can only reverse. And when I open my eyes to do it, it's even better.
Josh Seps.
Weekdays from 12:30 on ABC Radio Sydney.
This is Breakfast with James Valentine on ABC Radio Sydney.
Very good morning. Good to be with you here. It's 9 minutes to 6. The first 747 into Australia was a Pan Am. Morning, John P. from Albury. John writes, we would watch it take off each Sunday at around 3 p.m. from Grands at Gunnemutter Bay. I love that sentence so much because, of course, you can just immediately go, why was the 747 taking off from Grands at Gunnemutter Bay? I would have thought it'd take off from the airport. Ha, ha, ha. It was so big and seemed so slow. We didn't understand how it stayed up there. I still don't, John, really. Something to do with air and the shape of the wing. But people say that. I don't know what it means, though. It still doesn't make a lot of sense. Here's a joke from the 1970s. I thought the song Yellow River was by I.P. Daly. Huh? Hey? Yeah, very, very good. Thank you, John. Nice to hear from you. Judith says, I wish it was 1970, back when the 747 first flew. Then I wouldn't have to supervise 2 periods of rec sport with Year 9 this afternoon. Sigh, says Judith. Yeah, I feel your pain there, that's for sure. The fun story in Australia at the moment is the disappearance of a radioactive capsule off the back of a truck in Western Australia. It's pretty extraordinary, and engineer Edward Obard wrote something about this in the conversation and can explain more. Edward, good morning.
Hey, good morning.
What do they use this stuff for? Why would it be moved around?
Okay, well, in industrial radiation gauges are used for all sorts of things. It may be used for calibrating radiation detectors in the mine. It may be used for measuring the thickness of steel plate, so a kind of non-destructive testing, like you have to check how much metal you have left on some important component. You can also use radiation for checking the flow of slurry and liquids and water through pipes, which is all part of mining and processing of minerals. So I'm not sure which exactly, but yeah, plenty of applications for radioactive sources in industry.
Right. So the average person might be quite unfamiliar with this, but miners are used to this kind of practice.
Yeah, definitely. And in lots of other industries too, certainly oil industry, mining, chemical processing, they would definitely use radiation sources for, things that I've outlined.
Yeah. It feels a bit like it was rattling around in the back of the ute.
Yeah, I mean, it's worrying, isn't it? There's certainly some mistakes have been made, right? I don't know how you can do this exactly by accident. There are very, very tight regulations and security regulations, safety regulations around the handling and the transport of sources. So if you go through all the procedures as a licensee said that they would, this should not happen.
Right. Yeah. Yet it has, and so we're now looking for, as I said in the intro, we're looking not for a needle in a haystack, but some cesium in a desert. It's kind of it's impossible, isn't it?
It may actually be easier to find the needle in the haystack.
Yeah. How will people go about finding it?
Goodness. Well, radiation detectors for a start. You could get some very sensitive radiation detectors and drive up and down the road with them. But really, it's still, my view is that it's still a needle in a haystack, even if you have a radiation detector, because it's not that strong a source. I mean, it's obviously hazardous, but it's not, as radiation sources go, it's sort of medium to small. So it's not going to like leap out at you, as it were, if you were driving up and down with a radiation detector on a truck or something.
You'd have to be pretty much on top of it?
Yeah, you'd have to be a few meters away.
Yeah. So does it pose a danger?
Look, of course it does. It's hazardous, right? Radiation is dangerous. You don't want too much. I mean, for the passerby, I'd say really it's not hazardous. I mean, because if you didn't see it, you are extremely unlikely to spend a long period of time sitting on top of it, which is what you'd have to do for it to be dangerous.
Right.
And you're not going to obviously break it open if you didn't see it, which is the other hazardous thing you could do with it. So I think to the public in the sort of immediate future, it's pretty innocuous.
Yeah. Cartoonist First Dog on the Moon has been captivated by this, and so he has an image that a bird has picked it up and flown it somewhere, so it could now be anywhere in Australia.
Oh, I see. Yeah. Well, good point. Yeah, I mean, like magpies and stuff, right?
Yeah.
They pick up shiny things.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I like it.
Yeah. So it might pose a danger to animal life potentially.
Yes, but very, very little. I mean, a bit similar to humans, right? And animals have quite a different lifestyle and quite a different risk profile to humans. So it's, I'd say, even less hazardous to animals than it is to humans.
Yeah. So if we never found it, is that going to matter?
It's funny, like in the very, very long term, no, it doesn't matter at all, because radiation has a half-life and it disappears of its own accord. So after 100 years, it will not be dangerous anymore. But the interesting thing is the interim time, isn't it? Is because when we all forget about the news and we forget that a source has been lost in Western Australia, like in 5 years' time, it would still be dangerous. So I think that's maybe the time when I would be more worried about finding it, is when I've forgotten what it is.
Forgotten what it is, yes. And they did drive from Pilbara to Perth, so it could be rattling around a Perth street somewhere.
I guess so, yeah. I mean, obviously the best outcome is that we find it tomorrow. The second best outcome is that nobody ever finds it and it'll just, decay away. Yeah, that's about it.
Yeah. Well, it's a fascinating story, and I'm sure there's a lot of investigation going on, and a lot of people sitting, somewhat red-faced in meeting rooms at the moment, trying to figure out what happened. Edward, thanks for telling us something of it.
Yeah. Okay. My pleasure.
That's Edward O'Bard. He's a senior lecturer in nuclear engineering at the University of New South Wales in Sydney. Hannah, good morning. Hannah, our jelly-eating friend, says, no jelly this morning, I'm fasting. I'll be in an operating theatre in 2 hours. They're operating on my heart because it's beating too fast. Too much love, she says. Yes, that's true. Hannah, all the best with it. I'm sure it's going to go well, and you'll be back with us soon.
Traffic, ABC Radio Sydney.
Alf Parani, he's at the Transport Management Centre. Morning, Alf.
Good morning, James. Off to a pretty good start on the roads with just minor incidents happening at the moment. Traffic is building around the Cutler VC interchange at Preston's for the M7. That's to travel north, and also eastbound on the M5 at Casula towards the Hume Highway. Just take some extra care around Marsden Park. That early morning congestion there on Richmond Road through to the M7 and Rooty Hill Road north, and on the Hume Highway at Greenacre, just at the cross of Muir Road, there's a truck broken down, so just exercise some caution. On the T8 Airport and South Line, some trains are delayed following a police operation at Revesby earlier, and I'm just getting word in problems on the light rail, so the L1 light rail services are not running between Central and Lilyfield due to overhead wire repairs. We'll have more details shortly, but best to plan before you travel. transportnsw.info and livetraffic.com for the roads.
Alf, thanks so much, Alf, for the Transport Management Centre. The L1 light rail he was emphasising there is not not running at the moment. And we'll see if that's going to be picked up during the day. You're on ABC Radio Sydney News and AM along right now. We'll take a look at what else is making news. During the morning, we're going to pick up, of course, on the Josh Landis tale and what this might mean for the gambling debate in New South Wales, and also recycling rats. We did a little bit yesterday. This is the rapid antigen test, he hastens to add, and we'll pick up some more on that here on ABC Radio Sydney.
It's 6 o'clock. Good morning. Tony Matthews with ABC News. New South Wales Police will ask the Supreme Court to stop a demonstration planned to take place during Cardinal George Pell's funeral in Sydney. Tony Ibrahim reports.
Thousands of people are expected to attend the funeral mass of Cardinal George Pell at 11 a.m. on Thursday at St Mary's Cathedral in Sydney. Across the road in Hyde Park, the LGBTI group Community Action for Rainbow Rights is planning a protest. New South Wales Police say they've received the paperwork, but that negotiations to address safety concerns have stalled with the organisers. They say the Commissioner will file an application with the Supreme Court to stop the protest from taking place.
The body of the late Cardinal George Pell will lie in state at St Mary's Cathedral in Sydney today so that members of the public can pay their respects. Masses will also take place at 1 and 8 p.m. ahead of his funeral tomorrow. Nurses from 2 Sydney private hospitals will today walk off the job in protest against staff shortages. Staff from St Vincent's Hospital in Darlinghurst and the Mater Hospital in North Sydney will engage in work bans after similar industrial action in December. New South Wales Nurses and Midwives Association spokesperson Shay Candish says it's disappointing staffing issues are still unresolved.
Our members have been required to undertake huge tasks. They've put themselves and often the safety of their families on the line. And the community want to see nurses and midwives paid and respected and able to do their job.
Fugitive Mark Horn has been extradited to New South Wales after police discovered him hiding in the hull of a yacht in Darwin last week. Police allege Mr Horn removed his electronic ankle bracelet and eventually ended up in Darwin, where he was found hiding in the hull of a vessel which was due to depart overseas. The 32-year-old was wanted on 2 outstanding warrants for breach of bail relating to robbery and assault offences. He flew into Sydney last night and has been taken to Mascot Police Station, where he was charged. He's due to face Downing Centre local court today. The visiting head of the United States Marine Corps is warning that Australia and his country will need everything in the cupboard to avoid a conflict with China. General David Berger is on his second visit to Australia in 10 months, where he's held talks with top military figures. In recent days, a top US Air Force officer has predicted a war over Taiwan could happen within 2 years. But the Marine Corps' Commandant has declined to speculate on timelines.
Guessing at timelines is very difficult because you don't control all the variables, including the other side. We have to be prepared all the time. Marines, Australian Defence Forces, all the US military, we have to be prepared.
Australian researchers have found residential drug and alcohol treatment can significantly reduce future criminal convictions for adolescents. A study published in the Journal of Criminal Justice examined nearly 900 young people who stayed in a drug and alcohol program in Sydney. Researchers tracked 3 groups for 5 years post-treatment, including adolescents on a high criminal trajectory with more than 10 criminal convictions. One of the study's authors, Associate Professor Sally Nathan from the University of New South Wales, says that on average they had 4 fewer convictions than those who were not treated.
Well, I hope that the impact of a study like this is that the justice system and the health system can see the value of intensive programs for young people with these really increasing trajectories. They do deliver results for young people with complex needs.
Opal's guard Shyla Heal is preparing to play for Townsville Fire in the Women's National Basketball League tonight after her mysterious departure from the Sydney Flames. Heal has missed the Flames' past 3 games for what the club has described as personal reasons, with her father Shane Heal also sidelined as coach during that time. Heal will need to play in third place Townsville's last 7 games to be eligible for the finals, starting with tonight's match against Perth Lynx. Shane Heal hosted News Corp's basketball show yesterday, but declined to reveal why he was no longer coaching the Flames.
Well, I'm sure at some stage that'll come out, but right now, I can't say anything. I'm getting messages from journos all over I can't say anything. My hands are tied. At some stage, I'll be able to talk.
To the weather around the state, a shower or two about the coast and adjacent ranges, possibly extending to the western slopes in the north. Thunderstorms possible along the northern half of the coast and ranges. Sydney's weather, mostly sunny, just the slight chance of a shower and a possible late thunderstorm in the west. A maximum today of 28 degrees on the coast and 32 in the west. Right now, 20 degrees on the coast and in Penrith.
Good morning. Welcome to AM. I'm Sabra Lane, coming to you from Nipaluna, Hobart. The visiting head of the United States Marine Corps says Australia and his country will need everything in the cupboard to avoid a conflict with China. His warning comes as NATO's Secretary-General Jens Stoltenberg sharply criticises China.
China is substantially building up its military forces, including nuclear weapons, bullying its neighbours and threatening Taiwan. China is not our adversary, but we must understand the scale of the challenge and work together to address it.
And while the visiting US General David Berger has held talks with military chiefs here, he's distanced himself from a senior American colleague who's predicted a war with China within 2 years. Here's defence correspondent Andrew Green.
There are no permanent US Marine bases or units stationed in Australia, but the Commandant of the US Marine Corps is on his second visit here in just 10 months.
My value in coming here at this regular sort of rhythm is to learn, to listen, to learn.
General David Berger flew into Darwin, where hundreds of US Marines are deployed each year. In Canberra, he's held talks with top military figures where the People's Republic of China is the focus.
We are driven by a pacing challenge, which is the PRC. And there will be ebbs and flows in that long-term competition.
At a briefing inside the Australian Strategic Policy Institute, the four-star general has discussed those growing military tensions, particularly over Taiwan.
My own view is this one is going to take everything in the cupboard to prevent a conflict.
He says America and allies such as Australia need to constantly innovate to deter China.
We can't slow down, we can't back off, we can't get comfortable with where we are. Because the risk is then the other side moves a half a step and now you lost the deterrent value that we're after in the first place.
His visit coincides with a stark warning from another American general, Air Mobility Commander Mike Minahan, that the US could go to war with China by 2025 because President Xi Jinping is emboldened enough to invade Taiwan. General Berger did not directly address his colleague's comments, but said timelines were hard to predict.
We have to be prepared. I don't have a crystal ball. I can't predict because there's too many variables.
In the audience for General Berger's presentation was ASPI analyst Dr. John Coyne. He says the General's push for new innovative thinking on deterrence is a crucial message.
The future involves, and certainly when it comes to deterrence, involves a constantly evolving and rethinking West. And certainly for Australia and the US, that constant evolution is going to be important.
There's speculation that when General Berger returns to the US, President Joe Biden could make him the next chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, the nation's highest-ranking military officer.
Andrew Green reporting there. Advocates for an Indigenous voice to Parliament say they're worried the No campaign is already damaging the referendum's chances of success. The Voice Referendum Working Group, which is providing advice to the federal government on how to ensure a successful referendum, meets tomorrow. It's at a crucial stage, as Oliver Gordon reports.
I got a story to tell you. It's a good one. It's about how these people, the first people, got a voice.
4 months on from the launch of the Yes campaign's first TV ads, and close to 6 years after the Uluru Statement from the Heart asked for a First Nations voice to Parliament,
Backers of the change are calling for more support.
It's not just for First Nations communities to kick into gear and say yes now. It's up for all Australians.
Pitjantjatjara woman Sally Scales is part of the Voice referendum working group. She's concerned growing calls for a treaty before the Voice are misguided.
Treaty is a great song. You know, Yothu Indies have made it. It's a great song. It's become more and more of the buzzword, where I'm still waiting on the detail for what those treaty process that they're wanting. And I would love to have clarity around that.
Indigenous human rights lawyer and academic Hannah McGlade agrees. The expert member of the UN Permanent Forum for Indigenous Issues and associate professor at Curtin University believes a Voice would strengthen a national treaty-making process.
Across the nation, when we're thinking about a national treaty, we will need a national Indigenous representative body. We will need the Voice.
So what effect does she think that calls for a treaty rather than a Voice are having?
No doubt there has been some damage, but let's not forget that we're actually in the really early days of the campaign, and the government's announced a national week of action from February 18 to 24, and we will see a lot more public attention and focus and explanation of what the Voice is about.
There's also concern that the yes vote is being muffled at the moment by a group of high-profile Indigenous Australians who, along with past and present politicians, have this week begun to coordinate a no campaign. The Liberal Party is yet to come to an official position, but opposition leader Peter Dutton will attend tomorrow's meeting of the Voice referendum working group. Sally Scales will be there too.
What this can be about, him coming to the meeting, is actually to hear us and to hear what we're trying to do and hear what the discussions have been.
After years of studying Indigenous sovereignty and human rights, Dr Hannah McGlade is hopeful Australians back the Voice proposal.
I can wholeheartedly say that it's a very sound proposal.
And her message to those who are undecided?
Don't be on the wrong side of history and don't unwittingly side with those who continue this oppressive and indeed racist behaviour towards First Nations people.
The referendum will be held later this year.
Oliver Gordon reporting. It's 2 years since Myanmar's military seized power in a coup and arrested the country's leader Aung San Suu Kyi. Myanmar's already fragile health system has been crumbling and many people are fleeing into neighbouring Thailand seeking medical treatment. One of those they're seeking help from is an Australian nurse in a Thai border town. South East Asia correspondent Mazoe Ford went to meet her.
She's in a lot of pain. The pain is really strong. Yeah, she says she cried.
Nurse Kanchana Thornton is hearing a heartbreaking and familiar story. The 62-year-old woman sitting opposite her, Nya Lagu, fled from strife-torn Myanmar to Thailand, desperately seeking medical treatment.
There was an airstrike and we started to run and flee. Everyone was running. Someone ran into me and I fell and broke my hip.
Ms Thornton is a Thai and Australian citizen who began her nursing career in Sydney. Almost 20 years ago, she set up the Burma Children Medical Fund in the Thai border town of Mae Sot, a charity for kids on both sides of the border. When patients' needs are too complex for local clinics, Ms Thornton finds hospitals who'll take them, then pays the bills.
So because of my background, that what I know and learn from Australia, and I know that if you have good healthcare system, you can get things fixed, treat, and the children can, grow up and have a future.
Not long after setting up, she began helping adults too. And since Myanmar's military coup 2 years ago, her team's workload's been rising. That's because medical help inside Myanmar is hard to find. Private hospitals are expensive. Many people are too scared to go to junta-run clinics. Doctors and nurses working underground risk arrest or assault, and supplies are scarce. The perilous journey to Thailand is the best option for those who can make it.
We only touch the tip of the iceberg of all the problems that inside. We only able to see the one that have access to come across the border.
Human rights groups report that the junta's crackdown on dissent has led to at least 3,000 deaths and many more injuries. On Chor Tu was an anti-coup protester.
One day we were driving to a village and a heavy weapon dropped in front of us and exploded. I felt heat on my arm and then I saw I lost my hand.
He fled to Maysot, had surgery at the local hospital and has now come to Ms Thornton's team for a prosthetic arm. It was made on site with donated 3D printers. Myanmar's military rulers have promised to hold elections this year, but few Burmese people believe the vote will be free or fair, and they fear more violence around it. Kanchana Thornton's worried about that too. She wants the international community to do more to help Burmese people, but in the meantime, she'll keep doing her part.
It's devastating what's happening. There will be a lot more work for us, for sure.
This is Mazoe Ford in Maysot, reporting for AM.
And that's early AM. In finance, Wall Street stocks are higher on signs of easing inflation. The Dow Jones Industrial Average is around 0.5% higher. And the Australian dollar is also a touch higher this morning at 70.5 US cents. I'm Sabra Lane. It's 6:15.
This is Breakfast with James Valentine on ABC Radio Sydney.
Morning. Welcome. Wakey wakey on Wednesday, the 1st of February, 2023. It is a whole brand new month kicking off today. Do you know the 1st of February is the koala's birthday? No, I just made that up. It's not. It's got nothing to do with them. They don't have birthdays. They don't make little gifts for one another. Here, I got you some leaves. Oh, really? That's great. Thanks. I'm going back to sleep now. No, that's not what happens on the 1st of February at all. What happens is you'll be up and at it. That's what's going to happen today, on a day where it's expected to be hot. 28 in the city, 32 in the west. Sunny, might be a shower, chance of a thunderstorm. So much as we've been experiencing in the last few days is what we're going to get today and tomorrow. Top of 30 tomorrow. So again, thunderstorm, bit of a shower. Hot, humid, hot, sticky. Dress accordingly, behave accordingly. That's what's going to be happening. I was noting before the very last Boeing 747 rolled off the production line last December, and during this week it's been delivered to its new owner, and so it's pretty extraordinary that something that was first manufactured 53 years ago is still something you can sell today. This plane is still out and being sold today. Possibly it's a little different. There's been some upgrades, but the basic model is still there. John makes an excellent point. Contemplate this, he says. The 747 has been in production for 53 years, but if you go back 53 years from 1970, the planes that were being flown were canvas, wood and wire construction biplanes. Think of the development in those 53 years. And then think of the development in these 53 years. It's almost there's more change, there's more extraordinary development in those first 53 than anything since.
Traffic, ABC Radio Sydney.
Let's come back to Earth and get around in the car. Vic LaRusso's at the Australian Traffic Network. What's happening, Vic?
Morning, James. It's a busy start on our roads. There's breakdowns in Greenacre, Casula and Sylvania. The first in Greenacre on the Hume Highway, Muir Road, city-bound. In Casula, a broken-down truck, Camden Valley Way and Beach Road. And Sylvania, a broken-down truck on the Princess Highway, Box Road. West Ryde, heavy Victoria Road eastbound at Shaftesbury Road. Local flooding through Shanes Park has closed the Stony Creek Causeway right near South Creek. And leaving from the Northern Beaches, building off Military Road this morning, city-bound. From the Australian Traffic Network, I'm Vic LaRusso.
Vic, thanks so much. We'll have plenty of traffic news through the morning from Vic and Alf Paranihi at the Transport Management Centre. Alf mentioned before that the L1 light rail line to Lilyfield is not operating at the moment. There's damage to wires. I don't know when that'll open again. He was hoping he'll have more information for us at 6:30. But if you're planning to use the L1 this morning, that's a little bit of a problem. 18 minutes after 6, you're on ABC Radio Sydney this morning. We're going to be talking about lots of things, of course. There's some talk that Glebe markets might be closing, and we're picking up on that during the morning. We've got a few stall holders say they've been told that it's over. So if you've got any further information on that, our number is 0467 922 702. I'm also intrigued in your reaction to yesterday's removal of the CEO of Clubs New South Wales, Josh Landis. If you're in the club game, the poker game, if you enjoy these things, if you're a regular at clubs, What do you think this means for the ongoing discussion about gambling reform in New South Wales? And again, use the text line 0467 922 702 or call us direct on 1300 222 702. That and any problems you've got with garbage. The City of Sydney is struggling to pick up the garbage. So if you've got some views on that or some, you've got garbage sitting out the front, again, tell us what's happening. 0467 922 702. 20 minutes after 6, I'm James Valentine, and here's my reading of the papers today and all other attendant media. The Sydney Morning Herald is big on the removal of Josh Landis, one of the state's most powerful lobbyists. Lucy Cormack, Tom Rayam and Alexandra Smith write, has been sacked after triggering a political firestorm for linking the Premier Dominic Perrottet's Catholic faith to his gambling crackdown, leaving the club's New South Wales campaign against poker machine reform in tatters. Mr Landis said that that the Premier was motivated by his conservative Catholic gut rather than evidence. All sides of politics and, lots of people on either side of the gambling reform came out and said, step too far, absolutely wrong. The Board of Clubs New South Wales removed him yesterday. Alexander Smith writes further, now that the Club's New South Wales Chief Executive Josh Landis has been axed, the organisation has a chance to reset and put civility back into the debate over a cashless gambling card in this state. They point out, and we've been saying this kind of thing here for some time, that what's trying to be fixed is problem gambling, people who gamble away their savings, people who ruin their lives and their families' lives and others by an addiction to gambling. Could we try and have things in place to deal with that? And money laundering. Money that is laundered is money that has come from drug trafficking, sex trafficking, all kinds of ghastly behaviour that means that the cash has got to be laundered somewhere. Clubs in New South Wales do have to come out and sort of say what their values are, is what the Herald's pointing out and what many others are saying. Because the attitude that was being portrayed through the CEO, Josh Landis, was belligerent and oppositional to the whole thing, as though there wasn't a problem. Josh Landis appeared on this program a few times, and it was you'd sort of say problem gambling. You go, what are you talking about? As though there was no particular problem. I think recognition that there's a problem would be the first thing. And I wonder whether the board, this is just me wondering, thought, step too far, time to move in this kind of area. So let's hope that this can be something of a reset and we can start to talk sensibly about what might need to be done to deal with pretty serious issues in New South Wales. 22 minutes after 6, you're on ABC Radio Sydney. The Royal Australian College of General Practitioners has also bought space in the Herald to publish an open letter to the New South Wales Premier Dominic Perrottet. Dear Premier, don't kill off general practice, is the opening line. In your efforts to make up the shortfall in New South Wales payroll tax receipts, you could inadvertently wipe out the bulk billing in general practice. Please don't impose payroll tax on a sector that is so vital to the community and that is operating legitimately. Not all GPs own clinics. GPs who do own clinics have paid payroll taxes on wages and payments to reception staff, nurses, and so on since payroll tax was introduced, because we believe businesses should pay their fair share of tax as part of a functioning society. And so it's signed by the President and Chair of the Royal Australian College of General Practitioners. So a very, heartfelt appeal to deal with something there. And then the Herald also outlines these problems that the City of Sydney is dealing with in emptying the bins. So if you're aware of this, as there's bins outside your place or on your street that haven't been picked up, let us know what kind of problems are occurring. Our text line is 0467 922 702. City of Sydney has blamed worker shortages, industrial action and the lingering effects of COVID-19 for overflowing bins and dumped rubbish piling up on the streets as anger and frustration among residents grow. It's our core responsibility, says Yvonne Weldon, an independent councillor. Says she's been inundated with complaints for months, including from residents of a Glebe apartment block whose rubbish hasn't been collected for 3 weeks, wasn't collected for 3 weeks. It's our core responsibility. We need to get it right, and we haven't been. It is very core to local government, isn't it? It's kind of Many people suggest that that's really all they want local government to do. Could you pick up the bins, please? And if they're not being picked up, tends to be kind of a bit of an issue. You're on ABC Radio Sydney, 24 minutes after 6. We got news headlines coming along from at 6:30 today. We're going to take a look at the recycling of rats, as in rapid antigen tests. This was mentioned yesterday. We're talking about the fact that that rapid antigen tests the country's full of them. Really, they're in warehouses. They're in your bathroom drawer. Are they actually about to expire? Does that mean that they're unusable? What should we be doing with them, and can they be recycled? Were the questions. So we've got some answers to that coming up here on ABC Radio Sydney this morning. Nick writes, will Clubs New South Wales now remove the pictures of Helen Dalton from the foyers of Riverina clubs? Very, very good point. Helen was speaking on Richard Glover's program yesterday about the targeted campaign against her, not dissimilar to the targeted campaign, to the kind of targeted comments that were made against the Premier. And I guess this is what we're saying, isn't it? It's time for Clubs New South Wales to take this kind of personal heat out of this. We're either having discussion about a problem that's universally acknowledged and is based on evidence and how to fix it, rather than these kind of emotional kind of campaigns. Where do the gambling profits go? I listened to the interview yesterday, and I think the figure quoted was 2% to local benefit. Where's all the rest of it go? Follow the money. Yeah, it's an intriguing thing, isn't it? Like Clubs New South Wales and clubs in particular are not for profit, so it should be pretty open, and you think they'd be very concerned with wanting to deal with any problems that might be around those profits. Taking a look at the Australian, they've got a terrific piece, exposed Big Tobacco's links to vape research. One of the world's largest tobacco companies funded research that produced positive findings about vapes and e-cigarettes that have been used by Australian researchers and published in an Australian academic journal. An investigation by the Australian has exposed how Philip Morris, the tobacco company, infiltrated academia through the Foundation for a Smoke-Free World. This launched 4 years after the tobacco giant announced it would move into the e-cigarette market and is fully funded. The Foundation for a Smoke-Free World is solely funded by Philip Morris, who make Marlboro and Peter Jackson cigarettes. And this is, if John Safran's got all this in his marvellous book called Puff Piece, talks about how the under the guise of anti-smoking, it's such a kind of, smart, cynical move. Under the guise of anti-smoking, tobacco companies support vapes and e-cigarettes as a way of giving up smoking in order to increase the market and the legalisation and sale of vaping. And again, this is why we talk about it. It is just a health problem, and it is being supported by tobacco. And the Australian's done a terrific piece looking at all of that and looking at all of those relationships there. If you're looking for detail on The Voice, they also have a front page big sell on late model Voice, and it goes through some of the details of The Voice as to how it might roll out. This is the Voice to Parliament, the Indigenous Voice to Parliament, what the proposals might be, and what the follow-up will be should there be a referendum, and that referendum is positive. That referendum votes yes. That's so there is detail there if you want to follow that through. That's a little of what's in the media this morning. Thanks for those who are texting us. Good to hear from you. The high school I am at has a room full of rats, literally thousands of tests. They all expire at the end of this month. I'm hoping that I think this is right, that we can get some insights from Pathology Technology Australia, who are joining us in the next little while, as to whether is that a hard expiration? Is that like a fish, or is it like a can of tuna? Is it that yes, there's a best buy? Is it a best buy, or is it an actual expiry? And somebody was telling us yesterday that we're not clear as to whether or not did they just put 12 months on the thing, or not. Ridiculous to bring religion into gambling reform, writes another text correspondent, but also ridiculous to be sacked. In recent times, there seems to be so many strongly religious politicians. We should be able to question what effect, if any, their beliefs have on policy decisions. Religion shouldn't be off limits. Yeah, but I suppose that's a different thing. What you just articulated then, yes, I would tend to agree with, and I think that's not an unreasonable thing to ask. But that's a very different thing to a sort of using it as a slur, to just sort of say, this is just, there's no evidence that Catholics are particularly against gambling, or that this has been motivating the Premier at all. But to also just bring it in as an argument. I mean, we're talking about gambling reform to deal with problem gambling and money laundering. Let's just argue about that. We don't need to argue about the faith of somebody who's involved in the debate. It just seems to be that's what does that actually mean? That's wrong. So, very interesting. Thanks so much for your texts, and keep them coming on 0467 922 702. If anyone's got garbage problems, we'd love to hear from you. You're on ABC.
Good morning, Tony Matthews with ABC News. The federal government has imposed sanctions on senior Iranian military and government officials, as well as the leader of Myanmar's military junta. Among the 16 Iranians targeted is the commander-in-chief of the Iranian army, with travel bans put in place and orders to freeze any assets. The federal government says the sanctions have been imposed due to concerns about serious abuses of human rights in Iran, particularly against women. 16 officials within Myanmar's military junta have also been targeted in response to the ongoing violent crackdown in the country. The body of the late Cardinal George Pell will lie in state at St Mary's Cathedral in Sydney today, ahead of a funeral mass tomorrow. Members of the public will be able to pay their respects to Australia's highest-ranking church cleric from 9:30 this morning. Masses are being held at 1 p.m. and 8 p.m. today for those who can't attend tomorrow's funeral service. A silent protest will be held in the cathedral's forecourt today, with ribbons representing survivors and victims of child sexual abuse. The New South Wales Regional Health Minister has accused the federal government of misleading the public about the rollout of a program to attract more GPs to regional areas. Last year, Bronnie Taylor asked the Commonwealth to expand the single-employer GP model that was developed in the Murrumbidgee Local Health District to more sites across New South Wales. She says the federal government told her it was still evaluating the program, and last week announced an expansion in Tasmania.
To see it rolled out in the smallest state, which is wonderful for Tasmania, but to not have it rolled out in New South Wales when we've done it, we've got rubber on the road, we've actually been running this pilot. It just absolutely beggars belief.
The Federal Health Minister Mark Butler didn't respond to claims that the New South Wales proposal was overlooked, but says work is underway with all state governments, including New South Wales, for expansion. The former Queensland Solicitor General Walter Sofronoff KC will head a board of inquiry into the handling of the discontinued prosecution of former Liberal staffer Bruce Lehrmann over the alleged rape of Brittany Higgins. Elizabeth Byrne reports.
The inquiry was announced last year after a letter from the ACT's DPP Shane Drumgold, revealed under Freedom of Information laws, alleged police pressured prosecutors not to pursue a rape charge against Mr Lehrmann. His trial ended after a juror's misconduct, and the retrial was abandoned because of concerns about Ms Higgins' health. Mr Lehrmann has maintained his innocence, and there have been no findings against him. Mr Sofronoff will look into the handling of the case. The government has already indicated it would like to see a report by the end of June.
The New South Wales Poisons Information Centre says nearly twice as many children under the age of 4 were exposed to vaping products last year. It says it received 213 calls in 2022 compared to 127 the year before. The Poisons Information Centre says young children exposed to vaping products often suffer from toxic reactions, including vomiting, increased heart rates and seizures. China says it's seriously concerned about reports the Biden administration will cut off tech giant Huawei from US suppliers. East Asia correspondent Bill Birtles reports.
Multiple reports say the Biden administration is tightening its restrictions on Chinese giant Huawei and has stopped issuing licenses for some American firms to sell products to the company. The previous Trump administration barred the most advanced chips designed with American technology from being sold to Huawei, striking a big blow to its 5G business. Huawei has long denied US claims it's used by Beijing for espionage, but like all Chinese companies, it's compelled by China's law to cooperate with Chinese intelligence. The report comes just days before US Secretary of State Antony Blinken heads to China for a visit.
And in sport, defender Harry Souttar is set to become the latest Socceroo to play in the English Premier League. The 24-year-old has reportedly agreed to a deal to join Leicester City from second-tier Stoke in a $26 million transfer. The transfer deadline is later this morning, Australian time. To the weather around the state, a shower or two about the coast and adjacent ranges, possibly extending to the western slopes in the north. Thunderstorms possible along the northern half of the coast and ranges, fine elsewhere. Mostly sunny for Sydney, just the slight chance of a shower and a possible late thunderstorm in the west. A maximum today of 28 degrees on the coast and reaching 32 in the west. Right now, it's 20 degrees on the coast and 19 degrees in Penrith. ABC News.
This is Breakfast with James Valentine on ABC Radio Sydney.
Morning, how you doing? Welcome to a Wednesday. Welcome to February. I don't know why. You know what I started? I just said that, I think, as a kind of a joke, February, and now I can't say it correctly. I can't say the name of the month anymore. It's like Richard Glover trying to say the name of the country. February. Okay, I think that's it. I just have to try and get that in my head. Once you say it wrong, you're done forever. Very good morning. Welcome to the first of the month. Pinch and the punch. See, I got in first. I don't think anybody else did it. I have no idea why people do that or what it means. My children started doing it to me at some point. I went, what are you doing? What is this? Where did it even come from? Never heard of it. Stop doing it. You're on ABC Radio Sydney. It's good to be with you here this morning, and we'll take a look at the recycling of RAT tests, the rapid antigen tests, in a moment or two. And Stu Cameron's going to join us, CEO of the Wesley Mission, with some reaction to the removal yesterday of Clubs New South Wales boss, Josh Landis.
Traffic, ABC Radio Sydney.
Alf Paranese at the Transport Management Centre. Morning, Alf.
Good morning, James. A punch and a kick for being so quick.
Oh, is that... See, it's a violent way to begin the month, isn't it? Like,
It is.
What about a smile on your dial? Because this month will be here for a while. You know, what would be wrong with that?
Actually, I might keep that handy in the back pocket for next year. Then
Get that. I'll get that scanning a little better, but something like that would be nicer.
James, in Casula, Camden Valley Way, just past Beach Road, we do have a semi-trailer that's broken down, closing 2 of 3 city-bound lanes or eastbound lanes. So that's lane 2 and 3. Lane 1 is open at the moment, but traffic is quite slow in the area, so just exercise some caution coming up through from the M5. Talking about the M5, a little slow around the Cutler VC interchange as you head towards Currajong Road. Also that northbound run on the M7 all the way up through to Cecil Hills. Heavy going northbound traffic at the moment. Likewise for the M4 through Minchinbury as you head towards the Lighthorse interchange, and that usual delay too coming through the M7 from around Bella Vista into the M2 at Borkham Hill, so allow plenty of extra travel time. Now, there is a limited number of buses replacing L1 light rail services between Central and Lilyfield now. It's all due to urgent overhead wiring repairs at Piermont. Now, services continue to run between Lilyfield and Dulwich Hill. However, our advice is to consider alternative transport and do allow some extra travel time. Looking pretty good on other modes of public transport at the moment, James. To get the latest updates before you travel, transportnsw.info, and for all things roads, livetraffic.com.
Alf, that L1 problem will be likely for the day, for the morning at least?
At the moment, we're told that, so don't have any word of or any ETA of when that will be up and running.
Okay.
Fully,
Alf, thanks so much. Alf Paranee here at the Transport Management Centre there with the latest.
This is Breakfast with James Valentine on ABC Radio Sydney.
Well, reaction yesterday was certainly swift to Josh Landis's comments that the Premier was acting on his conservative Catholic gut in response to gambling reform. But then Clubs New South Wales reacted pretty swiftly too. Hasn't dragged on for days. They just said, all right, unacceptable, you're done. Does this reset the debate on gambling reform in New South Wales? Stu Cameron joins us, CEO of the Wesley Mission, gambling reform advocate. Morning, Stu.
Good morning, James.
Yeah, what do you think?
Well, it's an extraordinary moment in New South Wales politics, I think, James. I don't think we can overstate that. I mean, the Clubs New South Wales, under Josh Landis's leadership, have been one of the most powerful and effective lobby groups in the state, probably the most powerful. And we certainly hope that it does mark a moment where the conversation can be reset. We don't want to get ahead of ourselves, but we were interested that yesterday there were some comments coming out from Clubs New South Wales that indicated they knew that the conversation around cashless gaming was probably lost. And we would hope that Clubs New South Wales and the AHA would work with government and with other key stakeholders towards effective gambling reform.
And I've heard from some club bosses have been quoted already. This is people that run actual clubs saying, yeah, look, they didn't feel as though that the clubs needed to be quite so oppositional in working with this.
Yeah, but that's been the modus operandi for years. And to be honest, it's worked effectively. I mean, even in this election cycle, of course, Mr Landis had come out very publicly saying that Clubs New South Wales, for example, would target Helen Dalton down the southern part of the state because of her opposition, because of her support for the cashless gaming card. These are NRA, National Rifle Association style tactics: attack, attack, attack. We hope that there's a more conversational and more collaborative approach that will emerge out of this. It is an opportunity for a reset, no question.
And I think the Herald has put it like this. I mean, Clubs New South Wales, in a sense, at this point, really have to state what their values are. I mean, are you opposed to money laundering and opposed to problem gambling? Because at the moment, that's all anyone's trying to fix. I mean, they're not trying to close down the club or stop people using poker machines. Exactly.
And, my friend and colleague Tim Costello makes the point that research shows that around 40% of the revenue that gets poured into poker machines comes from people who are suffering gambling harm, and there's another 20% are on their road towards gambling harm. So this is a huge issue for the state. It's something that should have been addressed a long time ago. We have a unique opportunity in this election cycle to see a significant social reform, and we think all stakeholders should be embracing that and working together towards that reform.
So are you reading the removal of Josh Landis as CEO of Clubs New South Wales as a change in attitude from Clubs New South Wales?
Well, they certainly moved swiftly. We think there's an opportunity on the other side of that decision, as I said, to reset the conversation and for Clubs New South Wales to be part of the solution, not to block what would be sensible reform.
Stu, thanks so much for joining us.
Thanks so much, James.
Stu Cameron, CEO of the Wesley Mission, gambling reform advocate.
Mornings. Hi, Sarah McDonald here. Start your day with me and the brand new morning show on ABC Radio Sydney. We'll have all the latest news for you, the weather, the traffic, and you'll hear the stories that matter to our great city. We've got you covered and you'll have a laugh along the way. Come join the fun. Mornings. On the brand new morning show. With Sarah McDonald. From 8:30, right here on ABC Radio Sydney.
This is Breakfast with James Valentine on ABC Radio Sydney.
17 minutes to 7. Good to be with you here this morning on the first day of February in 2023. Now, we had a story yesterday, we were talking yesterday about the expiry date of rapid antigen tests and a suggestion that there's both somebody said before that their school has thousands in boxes that are due to expire at the end of this month. There are many that are warehoused at the moment, owned by federal government, but sitting in warehouses. People are still paying $30 for 5 and this sort of thing at the chemist, but a lot of these are about to expire. What is actually the expiry date. Is that a hard expiration as such, or is it something where, you know what, it looks like you could still use them, and do we have any knowledge on that? And can these things be recycled, the actual products themselves? It's a plastic cassette, it's wrapped in plastic, there's the thing you stick up your nose. Can all that be recycled at any point? Dean Whiting is the CEO of Pathology Technology Australia, the manufacturer's peak body, joins us this morning. Dean Whiting, good morning.
Yes, good morning, James.
Yeah, what's your sense of the expiry date to start with? Is that, if it says, February 28 on the rat, is that it? Won't work on March the 1st?
Well, look, this is a date that's worked out between the manufacturer and the regulators that to verify that the test still works as intended up to that date. They will work for a little time after that, but you can't be sure of the result. And the reason is because they contain, biological entities. They contain antibodies and other chemicals which do go off over time. And so, you can't be absolutely sure of the results, and therefore it's not recommended that you use the product.
Yeah, I was using the comparison. Is it a fish or a can of tuna? It's more like a fish. Is that what we're saying?
You're more like a fish, yes,
right.
Exactly. Yeah, and because there are enzymes involved and antibodies involved that are captured onto that little strip inside the cassette, and they do actually go off over time.
Yeah. And so do you have any estimate of how many we're talking about? I guess the problem is that we made a lot of them very quickly, so a lot of them are going to expire at the same time.
Yes. Unfortunately, we had that more or less panic buy in that December, January, February period, or January, February last year. And many of the kits that were purchased at the time had a 1-year expiry date. And, I think it's just a symptom of us not really preparing that particularly well when it comes to rapid antigen tests. I think we prepared extremely well with PCR, and we were fairly smooth with PCR. Although when the big bolus of testing came, early last year, everybody was caught unawares. And so I think if we prepared better, if we had a better schedule for using the combination of rats and PCR, then we probably could have smoothed this out a little bit and we wouldn't be facing this now. But that's all in the past. I think we just have to learn from that going forward.
Well, one immediate solution we were talking about yesterday, or perhaps not entirely a solution, but, maybe these things should be released. If they're sitting in a warehouse somewhere,
I agree.
Can't they be in every aged care by the end of the week?
Couldn't agree more. I think the state and the federal governments are sitting on hundreds of millions of kits, and I couldn't agree more. I think Victorian state is starting a process where they release them for freely for use. I agree completely. And look, many countries around the world issued these free for everybody to use at any time during the pandemic, and I think it's a great way of picking up cases early and helping people make decisions about isolating and slowing down the transmission.
That's right. But look, there's still places that want regular testing: schools, aged care, hospitals, etc.
There's still. We still should be testing. There's still a reasonable amount of COVID in the community. So yes, we should, and making them freely available would make a lot of sense to me because they're just going to expire.
Yeah. Can the kits themselves, are they recyclable?
Well, when you look inside the kit, you've got a number of components. You've got some plastic bags. They're polyethylene. As we know now, thin plastics like that are quite difficult to recycle. You've got the tubes, the swabs. Then you've got the cassette. The cassettes themselves are made of a high-intensity polystyrene, which technically are recyclable, but it's probably not going to be recycled or reused. It's not one of the commonly recycled plastics, and they typically go into landfill, unfortunately, and they're there for 300 or 400 years. Medical waste makes up about 4.5% of the carbon footprint on Earth. So and single-use plastics like these make up a large part of that, that medical waste. And so it is it is a problem for the healthcare industry as a whole to try and solve and try and come to terms with.
I suppose that if we're looking into a future, could they be made of more recyclable things?
Well, interesting you should say that. There's a company in the UK called SureScreen. They do actually sell their cassettes in Australia as well, but they have they've developed a biodegradable cassette, and more than that, they're going away from the polyethylene bags and using recyclable bags as well. So I think this is a really, really big step forward to have biodegradable. And when you look at the evidence base that's becoming available, biodegradable plastics do have a lower carbon footprint and produce a smaller microplastic load in the environment. So I think this is the way to go, is the biodegradable kits, and I'd much rather see those used in future than the high-intensity polystyrene cassette.
Yeah. Dean, good to talk to you. Thanks so much.
You're welcome, James.
Dean Whiting, CEO of Pathology Technology Australia. And look, we'll get in touch with the New South Wales Health Minister at least, and New South Wales Health to see if we can get a release at least of these soon to expire rapid antigen tests. I mean, you'd think maybe if you get to a point, 1 month out from the expiry date, can they simply be moved into areas that really need them, help with expense in schools and aged care and the like. Let's see if we can get some comment and response on that in the next day or two. You're on ABC Radio Sydney. We've been discussing the removal of Josh Landis yesterday, which has given us a few texts. A few texts have come in from people involved with clubs. The top 10 clubs have more pokies than the bottom 500 clubs. I'm a club manager, writes that correspondent. It's just worth pointing out that there's 10 clubs that have obviously got an enormous influence in what's going on. Another person says, I work at a club. I won't mention the name of the club, but they said, I work at a club. This club recently did a renovation at more than $100 million, and this person suggesting they didn't have to borrow any money. So where the money washes around in clubs, who knows? Maybe, but there seems to be a lot of it. And this is, I suppose what I find intriguing is there's so much money there. If the profits went down a little because we dealt with money laundering and problem gambling, how is that a problem? Why would that be? What would be the downside of that occurring? City of Sydney Council's having problems picking up rubbish, reports the Herald this morning. Amanda, what have you seen?
I live in Erskineville in Union Street, and we had a big rubbish outside our house since the 4th of January. It was finally picked up yesterday. Numerous calls to council, 4 from me, plus an email to one of the councillors, other people in the street as well. We were being told they couldn't get staff, like the contractors couldn't get staff, or were on strike. And it was fairly irritating.
And
is
this like, it was just like hard rubbish, that sort of thing, or was it bins not being picked up?
No, this was lounges. There was a dryer, and then people kept adding to it all.
Oh yeah,
and then it was just people's rubbish.
Once it's there, everybody thinks, oh, that'll get picked up. I may as well do that. But that is too long. You're right. Thanks so much for that, Amanda, and good to hear from you this morning. You're on ABC Radio Sydney. Are glebe markets going to close at the end of the month? We've been hearing they are, and we've got some store holders who can talk to us about that in after the news at 7 here on ABC Radio Sydney.
Available now on ABC Listen. Enjoy our library of great Aussie audiobooks all summer long, free to stream on the ABC Listen app. With a collection of fiction and non-fiction titles, including The Messenger by Marcus Suzak.
Now hang on a second. Marv's getting all offended again. Since you're holding up the bank, the least you can do is pay my parking fine, don't you think?
A great range of ABC audiobooks, free to stream on the ABC Listen app.
Traffic, ABC Radio Sydney.
7 minutes to 7. Let's see what's happening on the roads. Vic LaRusso's at the Australian Traffic Network. Morning, Vic.
Morning, James. Broken down truck in Casula off the Camden Valley Way and Beach Road. 2 of the 3 lanes closed. Maroubra, an accident, Duncan and Maroubra Road. Paddington car in the Clearway, Oxford and Glenmore Road. And Dundas, Stewart Street is queued back toward Marsden Road. The M7 remaining very slow, city-bound, passing Old Windsor Road. From the Australian Traffic Network, I'm Vic LaRusso.
Thanks, Vic, and we'll have more from Alf after the news at 7 with more information on the public transport, the buses and the trains and the light rail. L1 is, I think, closed from Lilyfield to the city at the moment. It's not running. There are buses in place, but you're being advised that might keep on, that might be problematic throughout the morning and the day. So they're fixing overhead wiring. So if you're planning such a usual route, best advised to plan something else. 6 minutes to 7. We've got a major sporting event coming up. You know, we celebrate things like the Women's Soccer World Cup is coming to Australia. Well, here's another one. The World Athletics Cross Country Championships is being held in Australia, in New South Wales, in Bathurst, at Mount Panorama. Not at the same time as the car races or the Easter motorbike races. It'll be different. But in the same place, and I think not on the actual track. I think I've got that right. Peter Bromley is the CEO of Athletics Australia and joins us this morning to celebrate this arrival. They start off on the Friday, the 17th of February, so they'll be here soon. Peter Bromley, good morning.
Good morning, and thank you for the opportunity.
Not at all. This is a big event.
It is a tremendous event. It's the first time we've had the World Cross Country Championships in Australia, and in fact, it's the first time we've had a World Athletics event since 1996 when we had the World Juniors leading up to the Sydney Olympics. So it's a long time between races, you might say.
Yeah. Why is that? Are we just not on the calendar for track and field?
Oh, it's a. I suppose you'd say Australia's a long way from the rest of the world. Track and field is very strong in Europe, in the European countries and America, but we've certainly got the focus back on Australia now with the Commonwealth Games in 2026, and Brisbane's getting the Olympics in 2032. So a lot of these things are now starting to turn the focus to Australia and the Southern Hemisphere. So we're very pleased to have this. It's, as you say, it's on February 18, and it starts on February 17 with a whole range of events for schools and younger people, and then finishing on the Sunday, the 19th, with the World Masters Championships as well. So it's a complete range of events from school children right through to the Masters.
Yeah, fantastic. How is cross country codified? Like when it's run as a sport, are there set distances, set hills, set sort of terrain that you're meant to run over?
I think a lot of the listeners would probably think about they've probably all run cross country at school or even a club, and it's one of those events that we probably all run at some stage. Each event, each course is different, so there's not a record for each because it runs over different distances. For the actual World Cross Country Championships this year, the men's and senior.
Oh, we just lost him. His phone just dropped out. He's gone. Peter Bromley, CEO of Athletics Australia. Hopefully we'll try and get him back. We've got a minute or two. But anyway, he just disappeared for some reason. It happens with Sydney phones, doesn't it? Happens with I think the great days of phones were the early 2000s, the analogue mobile. Gee, it worked well. It was always there. It was reliable, often good quality. Whereas your digital, you never know. You never know. Off they go. Anyway, I think he's back. Peter Bromley, CEO of Athletics Australia. Let's just pick it up. Peter Bromley, the event in Australia will be running. What are we actually? What's the course?
So it's a 2-kilometre course. It's, as you say, it's at Mount Panorama, not on the actual racetrack that the car races do, but it's set up through the hills there. It's quite a tough course, and so as we said, the senior races are 10,000 metres, so it's 5 laps. But one of the other really unique races that we're having is the medley relay, mixed medley relay. So 2 women, 2 men, each run 2 kilometres each. That's a total of 8 kilometres. Huh. And we have some of our best middle distance runners competing, and we're hoping that we'll be in the medals.
Yeah, that's nice. That's terrific to do a mixed thing like that. So are these runners who we might see them running the 5,000 and the 10,000 in track and field, and then they do cross country as an add-on?
Absolutely. So as I just said, the mixed relay, you've got people, we've got Oliver Hall, who won the gold medal at the Commonwealth Games this year last year now in the 1,500 metres. We've got Abby Caldwell, who won a bronze medal at the 1,500 metres in the Commonwealth Games. We've got Stewie McSween, who is an Olympic finalist. We've got So again, we've got a great range of people in terms of who's competing at that level. So you've got Olympians, Commonwealth Games representatives, world champions.
Now, we can ourselves get out and have a run, right?
Pardon?
We can have a run there as well, right?
Absolutely. As I said, there's an event for everybody from the youngest athletes right through to seniors. So we've got a great program that starts on the Friday there. And then you can also run in a mass participation race. We call it the golden ticket. And uniquely, the first 7 across the line in that golden ticket race get a chance to run in the actual world cross country event. So,
right.
Yeah. So there's some really good events on over that 3 days.
That's good. I like that. So the first 7 will then be running in the actual thing. That's great.
Yeah, for the men's and women's and senior. But just again, you have to run as your own person. You're not a representative for our country, but what a great incentive to get out there and have a run with some of the best athletes in the world. And we've got 68 countries coming.
Yeah.
So as you say before, lots of Olympians, world champions out there and representatives for their country.
Yeah, fantastic. Look, if only I had time to train this month, I'd be turning up. Peter, thanks so much.
Thank you, and we look forward to. And again, it'll be live streamed, but it'll also be. It's a great weekend. So the Bathurst area has really been supportive of us. We've been fantastic, and it's a great place to go.
It's going to be great. That's Peter Bromley, CEO of Athletics Australia, and the World Athletics Cross Country Championships start on Friday the 17th of this month. So get online to find out all the details that Peter was alluding to there. Seconds away from the news at 7. A couple of big stories after that. The 30-year-old glebe market, is it closing? Is it going to close in a month? You know, those markets that are in your area, they're a big part of the joy. Is that one going down? We'll find out more after the news.
G'day, I'm Richard Cobber. Are you in need of a laugh? Well, join me and some of Australia's finest comedians as we dissect the biggest stories of the week on Thank God It's Friday. TGIF. Download it now on the ABC Listen app.
It's 7 o'clock. Good morning. Tony Matthews with ABC News. The body of Cardinal George Pell will lie in state at Sydney's St Mary's Cathedral today as survivors of clergy abuse and their supporters stage a silent protest outside. Jessica Kidd reports.
Ribbons are being tied to the fence of St Mary's Cathedral in a silent protest to remember victims of clergy abuse. Paul Orkettle is among the group of survivors and supporters and has told ABC Radio the ribbons symbolise the victims' voices.
There is a legacy that is still unfinished business and families are still hurting very much back home.
Members of the public can pay their respects to the late Cardinal from 9:30 this morning. Masses and a prayer service will be held today and a pontifical requiem mass will be held at 11 a.m. tomorrow morning, with the service streamed on screens in the cathedral's forecourt. Cardinal Pell will be buried in a private service in the cathedral's crypt.
Foreign Minister Penny Wong says a war breaking out in the Indo-Pacific would be catastrophic for humanity. Europe correspondent Nick Dole reports.
The Foreign Minister's told an audience at King's College London that the Indo-Pacific is becoming increasingly dangerous and volatile, citing the military build-up and the launching of Chinese and North Korean missiles. She says it's vital competition between the major powers is managed responsibly.
We must always remember that if conflict were to break out in the Indo-Pacific, it would be catastrophic for humanity.
She says Australia's investing in its defence capabilities to help deter conflict and maintain what she calls a strategic balance in the region. Nick Dole, ABC News, London.
The visiting head of the United States Marine Corps is warning that Australia and his country will need everything in the cupboard to avoid a conflict with China. Here's Defence correspondent Andrew Green.
General David Berger is on his second visit to Australia in 10 months, where he's held talks with top military figures. The US Marine Corps Commandant warns a war with China over an invasion of Taiwan is a real danger.
My own view is this one is going to take everything in the cupboard to prevent a conflict.
The four-star general says America and allies being innovative is the key to deterring Beijing.
A man wanted on 2 outstanding arrest warrants has been extradited to New South Wales after being arrested in the Northern Territory last week. Simran Gill reports.
Police allege 32-year-old Mark Horn removed his electronic ankle bracelet and spent 3 months on the run before eventually ending up in Darwin, where he was found hiding in the hull of a vessel which was due to depart overseas. Police say he was in possession of false documents and a large sum of money. Mark Horn was wanted on 2 outstanding arrest warrants for breach of bail orders in relation to robbery and assault offences. The 32-year-old flew into Sydney last night and was charged. He will appear in Downing Centre Local Court today.
The 16 members of the Greens are embarking upon a 2-day policy retreat to thrash out their internal differences over an Indigenous voice to Parliament. Greens First Nations spokeswoman Lydia Thorpe wants a treaty first and is threatening to vote no in this year's referendum, arguing the voice would be a powerless advisory body. Her stance is at odds with many of her Greens colleagues who are in favour of inserting a voice into the Constitution. It's expected that the party will ultimately endorse the voice and allow Senator Thorpe to break ranks and vote no, an approach that is rare but technically allowed under the Greens rules. A new report advising the Northern Territory and federal governments on possible changes to alcohol restrictions in Central Australia will be handed down today. Lee Robinson reports.
Prime Minister Anthony Albanese announced the appointment of senior public servant Darrell Anderson as the Central Australian Controller. She was given the enormous task to advise on the next steps for alcohol restrictions within a week. New trial rules are already in place in Alice Springs, with Mondays and Tuesdays designated as takeaway alcohol-free days, while bottle shop operating hours have also been reduced. The head of the Aboriginal peak organisations of the Northern Territory has continued to support an opt-out model for alcohol restrictions in impacted communities.
A groundbreaking study has found residential drug treatment programs can dramatically reduce future criminal convictions for adolescents post-treatment. Norman Hamont has more.
The Australian study, published in the Journal of Criminal Justice, examined nearly 900 young people treated at a residential drug and alcohol service in Sydney. The study looked at those with low criminal convictions, moderate, and those on a high trajectory, with on average more than 10 convictions. Co-author Associate Professor Sally Nathan from the University of New South Wales.
The biggest thing that it's doing that's really new is that it's following these young people who've been referred to drug and alcohol treatment for up to 5 years post-treatment.
The study found a steep drop in convictions for the high trajectory group compared to those who weren't treated.
From today, many Australian workers experiencing family or domestic violence will be able to access up to 10 days of paid leave. Professor Kate Fitzgibbon from the Monash University Domestic and Family Violence Prevention Centre says the leave is a crucial way of supporting victim survivors to stay in the workforce. She says there are many different scenarios where workers will be able to access the new leave.
Paid leave to ensure they have the time to relocate, to set up home and schooling for their children, to attend counselling or any other support, to attend criminal justice matters.
The leave is available to employees of large and medium-sized businesses from today, but comes into effect for small business employees in August. America's top diplomat has concluded a 2-day visit to Jerusalem and the occupied West Bank aimed at calming the worst bloodshed there in years. Sean Rubenstein Dunlop reports from Jerusalem.
The US Secretary of State Antony Blinken says too many innocent lives have been lost on both sides. A Palestinian gunman killed 7 people near a synagogue last Friday, and at least 35 Palestinians, including civilians and armed militants, have been killed in the West Bank in the past month. After 2 days of meetings with leaders, Mr Blinken says he's leaving behind a senior team to work with Israel and the Palestinian Authority to restore calm. He's also vowed the US will work to oppose hardline measures against Palestinians wanted by extremist ministers in Israel's new right-wing government.
The American oil giant ExxonMobil has reportedly recorded annual profits of almost $79 billion last year. Exxon has benefited from soaring oil and gas prices caused by the war in Ukraine and from Western efforts to shift away from Russian supplies. The White House has expressed outrage at Exxon's record profits. It's criticised big oil companies for failing to invest in increasing supply to bring prices down. Long-time ABC broadcaster and famed artist John Pickup has died. Bill Ormond has more.
The 91-year-old was the last surviving member of the iconic Outback artist collective, the Brushmen of the Bush. Pickup was part of the group of 5, including famous painters Pro Hart and Jack Absalom, who rose to international fame in the 1960s and 70s with their depictions of outback life and landscapes. He also spent more than 40 years at the ABC, working in both radio and television across the country. A member of the Order of Australia, John Pickup passed away peacefully, surrounded by his family at his home in Murwillumbah on Monday.
Now time for sport with James Coventry.
Socceroos defender Harry Souttar is set to join Leicester City in the English Premier League. The Foxes have reportedly agreed to sign the 24-year-old from second-tier Stoke City in a deal worth $26 million. Opal's guard Shyla Heal is preparing to play for Townsville Fire in the Women's National Basketball League tonight after her mysterious departure from the Sydney Flames. Heal's missed the Flames' past 3 games for what the club's described as personal reasons, with her father Shane Hill also sidelined as coach during that time. Hill will need to play in third-place Townsville's last 7 games to be eligible for the finals, starting with tonight's match against Perth Lynx. On News Corp's basketball show, Shane Hill declined to reveal why he was no longer coaching the Flames.
Well, I'm sure at some stage that'll come out, but right now, I can't say anything. I'm getting messages from journos all over I can't say anything. My hands are tied. At some stage, I'll be able to talk.
And South Africa's long-time cricket captain, Danae van Niekerk, has been left out of the squad for this month's Women's T20 World Cup on home soil after she failed to meet fitness standards. The all-rounder failed to achieve the required time for a 2-kilometre run.
Looking at the weather picture for New South Wales, a shower or two about the coast and adjacent ranges, possibly extending to the western slopes in the north. Thunderstorms possible along the northern half of the coast and ranges. It'll be fine elsewhere. Mostly sunny for Sydney today, the slight chance of a shower and a possible late thunderstorm in the west. A maximum of 28 degrees on the coast and 32 in the west. The slight chance of a shower and a possible thunderstorm tomorrow and 30 degrees. Right now, 21 degrees on the coast and it's 20 degrees in Penrith. ABC News.
This is Breakfast with James Valentine on ABC Radio Sydney.
Good morning. Welcome to Wednesday. Welcome to the 1st of February. Welcome to 2023. I probably welcomed you to 2023 already, so let's assume that that's been done. Hello, and good to be with you here this morning on ABC Radio Sydney. Lots to think about, lots to talk about. Happy to hear from you on all the things we've been talking about, or anything else during the morning. We're going to have a talk to some people later about what it might mean if we have a sudden arrival of Chinese students back into Sydney and back into Australia. This was floated yesterday that in China they're suggesting that they want students not continuing with online learning back to Australian universities, but they've got to get back in here. So what does that mean? I mean, the most obvious thing seems to be in the middle of a time when it's hard for anybody to get a rental, where are the students going to be accommodated? So we'll be exploring some of that, and if you've got further issues or questions around that, let us know. 0467 922 702. That's our text line.
Traffic, ABC Radio Sydney.
Alf Paranese at the Transport Management Centre. Morning, Alf.
Good morning, James. Looking at some heavy traffic on Camden Valley Way coming through Casula at the moment. We did have lanes 2 and 3 closed here on Camden Valley Way, approaching the crossroads following a semi-trailer breakdown. That's just cleared in the last couple of minutes. Traffic still remains heavy though, so do continue to allow some extra travel time. Also busy patches on the M2, especially at the back of Macquarie Park, making that city-bound run through to the Lane Cove Tunnel. North Sydney Warringah Freeway approaching the Harbour Tunnel. We do have heavy traffic in that particular area too, following a earlier car breakdown that's now cleared, but delays back to Falcon Street, so allow some extra time until that starts to ease. A limited number of buses is replacing the L1 light rail services between Central and Lilyfield due to urgent overhead wire repairs at Pyrmont. So services continue to run between Lilyfield and Dulwich Hill though, but do consider alternative transport or allow plenty of extra travel time. Best to get the latest updates before you travel, transportnsw.info, and for the roads it's livetraffic.com.
Alf, thanks so much. It's coming up to 30 minutes after 7. You're on ABC Radio Sydney. We've been discussing The sacking yesterday of Josh Landis as the CEO of Clubs New South Wales after his comments about the Premier, saying that the Premier's not using evidence here but just following his Catholic gut, was the words used. I think I mentioned yesterday that I'm pretty sure there's Catholic clubs in New South Wales. Mark's got the figures. It's curious that Josh Landis would cite Catholic faith as a determinant of someone's opposition to gambling. 3 of the top 20 clubs in New South Wales by number of poker machines are Catholic clubs. Between them, Campbelltown, Lidcombe and Liverpool Catholic clubs have 1,400 poker machines. We've, I was also discussing, somebody else said, I'm puzzled by the vociferous nature of Clubs New South Wales opposition, as it's been up until now. For supposedly not-for-profit organisation, it's almost as if there's personal gain involved for management, Paz writes. I find this rather curious. I did speculate before, what would it matter to the not-for-profit clubs if their profits went down a little bit, if they dealt with problem gambling and money laundering? Correspondent says, profits from poker machines subsidise all other services that clubs provide. Sure, certainly the cost of meals and bar to members would go up. Other facilities they offer could also increase, same with membership fees. All clubs publish their financial statements. You can follow all this by a simple look at what's going on there. Yep, that may be true, but I mean, do you want your roast pork and your bingo room to be subsidised by problem gambling? Are you happy with that? We've been discussing what to do with expiring rapid antigen tests. This is their reaching an expiry date. Timor Pacific Islanders still need them. This discussion was held mid last year. Can't we just give them and bring back the used rubbish and this kind of thing? So yes, it's an interesting point, and we're going to follow this up with Health Minister. The state is full of rapid antigen tests, rats that are about to expire. We either need to get them out to people who need them, or we're going to have to recycle them in some way. But if they've got a month left in them, maybe they can be used at this point. 15 minutes after 7. Now, we've been hearing a rumour here from a few people that Glebe Markets is to close. This is the market stalls around the school there on Glebe, the primary school on Glebe Point Road. It's been running there on Saturdays for nearly 30 years. And we were hearing this from storeholders, that it's going to close at the end of this month. Joseph Stellino joins us, founder of Stellino Design. Morning, Joseph.
Good morning, James. How are you?
Good. How long have you been at the markets?
About 34 years. We were one of the first storeholders there at the time.
34 years? That's extraordinary.
Yeah. It's a long time, yes.
It is a long time. Now, what have you heard?
Well, I've been informed that is what's happening. As of the 25th of February of this next month, at the end of this month, we will be finishing.
And when were you told this? How long ago have you been told this?
We were just told last week, literally.
Right.
Just by an email by the management, due to personal reasons, that they will be finishing up.
Right. Okay. And so that to you said, that's it, come March, you won't be setting up your stall?
That's correct, yes. We had two sites there, and it's put myself and a lot of people into a bit of a panic to know what we can do and what we can't do going forward.
Yeah. Jackie Pateman joins us runs Jackie Lestrange Vintage at the market. Morning, Jackie.
Morning, James. Morning, Joseph.
Yeah, you've been there a similar time?
Yes, I have. 30 plus years.
30 plus years? How much has it changed over the years, Jackie? What have you seen?
Oh, we've been through lots of different cycles, but I think at the moment it is the most vibrant and energetic it's ever been. I really do. It's incredible. It's got all the young people coming through again, really creative, just pumping with good energy.
Yeah, fantastic. And so did you get the same letter? Same email?
I actually missed it. I think they had a bit of a glitch with their email system. So I was actually away on my annual holiday and I got a phone call from a friend and she told me on Friday. And by the time I got off the phone with her, I'd had 12 missed calls from other people.
Right.
So it's fair to say that everybody has just felt blindsided and panicked.
And so everybody is hearing this, that it's going to close at the end of this month.
Correct, yeah.
And no one's saying, well, we need to do this, or here's how it's going to work, or we can move somewhere else.
Well, unfortunately, I had cancelled my stall last week, having no idea that this was unfolding, continuing my holiday. So I wasn't even at the market to be able to speak to management or hear what was going on.
Joseph, is there movement at the markets? Are people trying to come together and do something about it? Have you spoken to management? What's happened?
Yeah. Yes, we have. Apparently, the market is up for retendering. It's a 5-year program that they get offered, and the management of the markets at the moment are either, I don't think, comfortable moving for another 5 years due to personal reasons, but there's a lot involved to make this place happen every day. And they really need, they've got to negotiate with the school, they've got to work with the council, they've got to work with the tendering process. And I think that there's a number of factors that they're unhappy with that has stopped them from moving forward.
Yeah.
My understanding is that it could be up for tender and another operator could come in and take it on. And we're all hoping that whoever has the ability to make this happen can keep it running as vibrant as it is now.
Well, here's what we've found out, and this may be a little bit reassuring. It does seem as though, as you say, and as was said in the email, that the manager, David McCumsty, is not going to continue, and that's for whatever reasons. But we contacted New South Wales Department of Education, and they said this: the department has no plans to close Glebe markets. The markets have been a mainstay at Glebe Public School for more than 30 years and play an important role in bringing the school and wider Glebe community together. The contract to operate the markets is due to expire in March. A tender process to operate the markets into the future will commence soon. Our understanding is that the Department of Education wasn't aware that David wasn't going to be continuing, but they're not going to. They don't have any plan to close it, Joseph.
Oh, well, that's great news for a lot of people.
Yeah. It does seem, Jackie Pateman, as though they've left a little bit late. I mean, you need to get a tender out and get somebody in to run it, by if it's to continue by next week, pretty much.
Yeah, it's worrying, but look, let's hope there's not too big a lag in between when we finish up on the 25th of Feb and when we can resume.
Yeah.
That's fantastic news that you've just relayed to us.
Well,
it's really reassuring.
That's all we've found out so far, but hopefully that's, but it does say that there's no one, the Department of Education is certainly not trying to do it, but the current management is not continuing. So hopefully Glebe markets can continue. You'll still be there in 30 years' time, Jackie.
I hope so.
Joseph, let's hope that's the same for you.
Thank you, James. Thanks for the opportunity to present our case. I really appreciate that.
Not at all. Joseph Stellino, Jackie Pateman from Glebe Markets. I mean, I think these things are a great part of Sydney life. Paddington Markets, wherever they might be. It's a terrific, it's a lovely way to shop. It's a lovely way to, people often get started there and move on to having their own stores and the like, or they stay and have a terrific career out of it, as we've just heard from Jackie and Joseph.
This is Breakfast with James Valentine on ABC Radio Sydney.
Very good morning. It's 21 minutes after 7. You're on ABC Radio Sydney. As I mentioned from time to time, I grew up in Ballarat in Victoria, and when I go back to visit my mother, I'm struck by the appearance of the Catholic Cathedral in Ballarat, which is, for the last few years, has been festooned in ribbons. The ribbons are placed by survivors, by people who were victims of child abuse, and they will allege or say, and in many cases proven, that this was at the hands of Catholic priests and the like. And so they tie a ribbon as a way of saying that they're there, of looking for recognition. And when I say festoon, the entire church fence, the entire cathedral fence is covered in ribbons all the way around. These ribbons were removed for a while, but I think there's an accommodation has been reached that they stay. And there's something sort of beautiful and simple and dignified about the appearance of those ribbons on that cathedral. Paul Kettle is a Ballarat child abuse survivor. He's come to Sydney and has been tying ribbons on St Mary's for the last few days. They're hoping to, he and others are hoping to that the ribbons will stay. The ribbons have been removed so far from St Mary's Cathedral. They'd like them to stay, as they feel as though they want to be represented as George Pell arrives. Cardinal George Pell arrives, lies in state, and then the funeral service is held tomorrow. They don't see it in terms of protest, but as something else. I went and met with Paul yesterday down at the cathedral and asked him what had brought him to Sydney.
I've come to Sydney to tie ribbons for people that are too sick to be here and who aren't alive anymore, and for their families who are too angry to be here. So I'm hoping to just put the ribbons up to show that there is a legacy that is still unfinished business, and families are still hurting very much back home.
It's such a strangely powerful symbol for such a flimsy little piece of material, isn't it?
That's right. The ribbons have become very important to us. They represent voices of people that have never been heard and probably won't be. And they have become a symbol for people to find their voice, which we believe is the first step to recovery.
Yeah. And you've been doing this for some years in Ballarat?
Yes, in Ballarat. It's quite accepted, and our cathedral back home has a blanket of ribbons on the front, and it's become a central point of support for people who, every time we meet someone tying a ribbon on the fence, we quietly approach them and they slowly start telling us the reason why they're putting the ribbon on the fence. And what's unfolding is this tsunami of stories of people who have been touched by the loss of someone. And we're here to say that this is part of the legacy of George. Even though he did a lot of good things, this is unfinished business. There are so many people affected by his inaction in the past.
It's interesting you say he did a lot of good things.
There were good things, yeah. Well, personally, he helped me a lot. When I was young, I was in trouble a lot. I was expelled from the same school that he went to, and he got me back in. When I finished school, in that first summer, I ended up in jail. I couldn't explain my behaviour properly. George helped get us out of jail quickly. He was always part of my family. I used to go swimming with my brother, with him as well. So I'm someone who George tried to help. I'm the eldest boy in my family, so I was being groomed to be a priest, which I didn't realise at the time. And George was part of that grooming, and he was in my life, and he did help connect a lot of people. He did good things in the sense that if you were able to convince George of something, it would happen. However, if you had problems, you had to be very quiet about them. This is where the story of Backdoor George comes from. If you go to the back door of the presbytery and talk quietly about something, he would help. If you go to the front door and try to make a scene about things, he would close the door on you. And this is what we're angry about, because we know that many families went to the front door of the church, of the presbytery, to speak to George, and he refused to. They then went to the police, and all they did was ring the presbytery back and say, get your house in order. Since then, a lot of those children have suicided, and these are the angry families that we're hoping to encourage the church to understand how we need to recover them.
Yeah. So, in a sense, what you're saying is the tying the ribbons is not a protest to say this funeral shouldn't occur, this shouldn't be happening.
That's right. No, we're not being disrespectful to the service. We are just highlighting that there's a lot of unfinished business, and what we need to be able to do is open the door so that people can feel comfortable with talking about their experience, their loss. And this is what George is connected to. He was in charge of our parish back home in Ballarat. He was in charge. The bishop was actually never lived in the presbytery, lived up at the lake. George closed the primary school that I went to after I left it. George moved Gerald Ridstar out of the presbytery and around the state. He made the decisions. So it was disappointing when the Royal Commission came and George said it wasn't. Because everybody knew that it was.
Yeah. And so what are you going to do over the next couple of days?
We're going to keep tying the ribbons up even though they're being taken down. We're hoping to engage with the cathedral staff. We've already met the manager. She says that she's keeping the ribbons in a safe place for something to do later that's respectful. I'm having trouble believing that, but we're going to try and follow that up and come back in a couple of weeks and see if we can talk more, because all we want to do is to have people acknowledge those who have been severely hurt. They were devout Catholic families that lost their innocent children, and for them to be spoken of badly now or to be neglected, ignored, those families are in a sort of a spiritual wasteland now. They're ostracised from the community. We need to recover them.
It's become your life. Where are you now with this? With the death of George Pell, post a Royal Commission, where are you?
I thought I was going to be in a good place, but my life has taken a tumble. My wife died suddenly a few years ago after the Royal Commission. That was a shock to my family. She was one of 16 children, and she knew all about things that I didn't, and we started doing foster care together 30 years ago, and I came to understand that children, when they're traumatised by an experience, unless they're able to work towards understanding it and finding a voice, they will suffer as adults. So it's very similar to what happened to clerical victims that I see in foster care. So my life is just what it is, but somehow it's become unable for me to extract what is church and what is not church now. I believe that the church has influenced our culture, whether you're a Catholic or not. They have influenced the way we think, the way we judge, the way we feel shame, and the way we meet our punishment. And I'd like to change that.
Paul, thanks so much for talking to us, and thank you for taking it on.
My pleasure, thank you.
Paul Ockertell at St Mary's Cathedral yesterday. Apologies for the audio there. It was a little bit dodgy here and there, but I think it was worth hearing what he had to say. Kathleen Calderwood, ABC reporter, is at St Mary's and has been following the story of other community actions, protests that are being planned and potentially stopped by police. Kathleen, good morning.
Good morning, James.
What's the scene there now? What are you seeing?
Look, it's a very quiet, solemn moment here at the moment. There's maybe about 15 people who are currently tying ribbons on the fence of St Mary's Cathedral. Now, there is a sort of rope or, temporary fencing around the entry to the cathedral, more so just because obviously they're expecting a lot of people to come today to see George Pell lying in state. So, yeah, as I say, there's about 15 people here tying up ribbons. It's a very quiet event. We're expecting, obviously, more people to come along. So, everyone's sort of being respectful here. There is one or two people sort of holding in dress and holding signs about George Pell as well. But so far, a fairly sombre event here at the cathedral.
Now, the New South Wales Police Commissioner is expected to file an application to stop a different action, a protest organised by Community Action for Rainbow Rights.
Yes, that's correct. So tomorrow there is a protest planned to start in Hyde Park, which is, of course, across the road from St Mary's. Now, the police yesterday filed in the New South Wales Supreme Court to have that protest declared unlawful. They're saying while they respect people's rights to protest, after negotiations with that group, they haven't been able to adequately organise sort of a safe protest, according to the police. Now, that group, of course, are saying that they're going to push ahead with the protest regardless. They're in a statement on their Facebook page. They've said that there will be a peaceful protest, and that they would obviously, over his years in the hierarchy of the church, George Pell was a very controversial figure, particularly when it came to his views around the gay and lesbian community, abortion and divorce. So tomorrow that protest will be really focusing on that part of his legacy, is my understanding. But we are expecting that to play out in the court today.
Kathleen, thanks so much.
Thanks, James.
Kathleen Calderwood, ABC News reporter down at St Mary's. As you might expect, the death and funeral of Cardinal George Pell. Huge range of reactions in Sydney and across Australia. Tony Matthews is with us at 28 minutes to 8 with the news headlines. Morning, Tony.
Hello, James. That is one of the main stories we're following. The body of the late Cardinal George Pell will lie in state at Sydney St Mary's Cathedral today. Ahead of a funeral mass tomorrow, a silent protest will be held in the cathedral's forecourt today, with ribbons representing survivors and victims of child sexual abuse. Nurses from 2 Sydney private hospitals will today walk off the job in protest against staff shortages. Staff from St Vincent's Hospital in Darlinghurst and the Mater Hospital in North Sydney will engage in work bans after similar industrial action in December. The federal government has imposed sanctions on senior Iranian military and government officials, as well as the leader of Myanmar's military junta. The government says the sanctions have been imposed due to concerns about serious abuses of human rights in Iran, particularly against women. In the US, it's expected American actor Alec Baldwin will be charged today with involuntary manslaughter after a fatal shooting on a film set in 2021. The film's armourer is also expected to be charged with involuntary manslaughter over the incident, which saw the gun Baldwin was rehearsing with fire a live round, killing cinematographer Helena Hutchins. And Harry Souttar is set to become the latest Socceroo to play in the English Premier League. The 24-year-old has reportedly agreed to a deal to join Leicester City from second-tier Stoke in a $26 million transfer. Sydney's weather, mostly sunny, the slight chance of a shower and a possible late thunderstorm in the west. A maximum today of 28 degrees on the coast, James, and 32 in the west.
Tony, thank you.
Traffic, ABC Radio Sydney.
Vic LaRusso's at the Australian Traffic Network. Morning, Vic.
Morning, James. We're seeing delays through St Clair, an M4 accident just near Mamre Road. The left lane's closed. The traffic goes all the way back through to Penrith. You may want to take the Great Western Highway and avoid the M4. You can always rejoin the M4 back at Parramatta. Artarmon, broken down past the Lane Cove Tunnel eastbound, and traffic queues from the Spit Bridge for Military Road toward the city continue this morning. From the Australian Traffic Network, I'm Vic LaRusso.
Thanks, Vic. We'll have more from Alf on the Transport Management Centre between now and 8. You're on ABC Radio Sydney. We're expecting, well, there's some expectation that there might be a sudden arrival of students from China as the Chinese government announced a snap ban on recognising online degrees obtained from foreign institutions. So the expectation is suddenly there might be a whole bunch of Chinese students wanting to get in. Well, can they? Are the unis ready for them? What does that mean? This has been such an interesting story through COVID times to the present as to what happened to foreign students and the effect on all sorts of aspects of Sydney life. If you've got further comments on this and insights, then join in. Our text line is 0467 922 702, or you can call us on 1300 222 702. That's what we'll be talking about ahead of Sarah joining us here on ABC Radio Sydney between now and 8.
This morning on AM.
Hi, Sabra Lane here. Nuclear submarines, weapons for Ukraine and the threat of China. The Deputy Prime Minister, Richard Marles, joins the program.
The AUKUS process is very much on track, and what that means is that we're at the business end of the season.
Advocates for an Indigenous voice to Parliament worried the No campaign is gaining ground. And we meet the Aussie nurse working in Thailand to help treat people fleeing from Myanmar.
We only touch the tip of the iceberg of all the problems that inside. We only able to see the one that have access to come across the border.
Those stories coming up soon on AM.
This is Breakfast with James Valentine on ABC Radio Sydney.
Yes, very good morning. It's coming up to 23 minutes to 8, and here's some things that are happening in Sydney today. The 21st Australasian Wind Engineering Workshop begins today at Waterview Function Centre in Bicentennial Park in Olympic Park. It runs for 3 days. I so want to know what's going on there. The Wind Engineering Workshop. Is that planes? Is that windmills? What is that? They get 3 days of it at Bicentennial Park. A new indoor cricket centre will be officially opened at Mark Taylor Oval in Waitara by Mark Taylor. Mark Taylor was born in Wagga, but played his junior cricket for Northern Districts based at Waitara Oval. Now that's at 4 p.m this afternoon. New indoor cricket centre will be launched. New South Wales Seniors Festival begins today. There's 12 days of activities. Here's a few things that are happening in North Sydney. Morning tea with the Mayor. A pop-up choir from 11:30. I don't know why the choir would be popping up. Do you think they might know? Dance workshop from 12:30 in Camden. Local council offering free pool entry to all locals 55 and over at Mount Anna Leisure Centre for the next 12 days. In Eastwood, learn felting at Brush Farm House Hall. It's on from 10:30. And in the Shire, seniors begin a surf lesson at Wanda Surf Lifesaving Club in Cronulla. That's from 9:30. That does include a free barbecue. Oh, that's good. That's free surf lessons. Fantastic. I'll be there. New South Wales Parliament House's this is not part of the Seniors Festival. New South Wales Parliament's upper house inquiry into teacher shortages is holding a public hearing in Camden at the Camden Civic Centre from 10:45. And Courtney Act will be part of Madame Tussauds exhibition at Darling Harbour. Oh, that's an honour, isn't it? Courtney will be revealing her wax figure to media this morning at 8:30. Fantastic. That's a little of what's happening in and around Sydney today. Hope you get to enjoy lots of it.
This is Breakfast with James Valentine on ABC Radio Sydney.
Well, very good morning. It's 21 minutes to 8. So this was an interesting thing that got announced in the last little while. Did you hear this? That in China, the Chinese government has announced a snap ban on recognising online degrees obtained from foreign institutions. So they're saying in China that if you're a Chinese student, if you're enrolled to study with an overseas university, you've got to be there. You've got to be on campus for semester 1. Well, that's in a couple of weeks here in Australia. And this was only announced a week or two ago. Pretty much only announced, a moment or two ago. And so how can universities prepare for this? What's available? Are we expecting suddenly, thousands of Chinese students to arrive in Sydney? The movement of students in and out of Australia through COVID it's had a huge effect on universities. It's had a huge effect on things like, staffing of restaurants and all sorts of things where some of these students do additional work. There's around about 42,000 Chinese nationals with student visas who remain offshore. Now, if suddenly there's a whole lot turn up, suddenly want to reapply, can they just turn up? Do they need new visas? What is actually going to happen here? How is this actually going to work? So we're going to talk to a few people about this, but you might have some insights, and our number is 0467 922 702. If you want to join us, Professor Merlin Crossley is the Deputy Vice-Chancellor of Academic at the University of New South Wales. We'll hear also from Yiganu Sultanpour, who's the President of the Council of International Students Australia. I think Merlin Crossley is with us. I can't seem to get Merlin on the phone here, Chloe. There we go. We should be able to get him right now. Professor Merlin Crossley, good morning.
Good morning, James.
Was this a surprise to you?
Oh, yes, a bit of a surprise.
Yeah.
But, the Australian government signalled that students should be studying back face-to-face by second term or second semester. So China's done it overnight. But, it's one term difference.
It's one term difference. But are you ready for them?
So we're making preparations now, and we're expanding the face-to-face classes. We're doing what we can with accommodation. But you'll be aware that the Chinese ministry has also issued some flexibility now.
Okay. What's the change?
So they put out a frequently asked questions, and if students can't make it in time, can't get an air ticket, can't enroll in a class, can't find university accommodation, provided documentation is provided and will provide it for accommodation or face-to-face if we can't support a student, then they can come next term.
Right. Okay. Oh, well, that's good news for the students, isn't it? And good news
Good news.
Good news for you, really, isn't it?
It's good news for everyone. And also the Australian government has increased visa processing time. So I've actually been quite heartened by the response to this.
Yeah, it's. I suppose we can, if we pull back a little, it says relationships are good. There's talk, there's communication, there's understanding on both sides.
Yeah, there's so much exchange between the two countries, and I think people want to make the relationship work.
Yeah,
it's good.
What's been the relationship through the 2 years of COVID, 2 or 3 years of COVID? How have you maintained that relationship with your Chinese students?
Yeah, so like everyone in the world, we've done things online. China and Asia is in our time zone, so maintaining those relationships actually is really important and has been and will be important for Australia in the future. We've managed online. Look, some things designed for online are actually better, but some things are better face-to-face, so we're delighted students will be coming back.
Yeah. And so your intention, and is this just UNSW or all universities saying we'll be full face-to-face by second semester 2023?
So look, all universities are doing similar things, but look, it'll never be full face-to-face in this fact that we've just... But there'll be some face-to-face available for people.
Right. Professor Merlin Crosley is with us, Deputy Vice-Chancellor of Academic at the University of New South Wales. My apologies for we've had another phone problem before and Merlin just dropped out there for a moment. It's inexplicable. It's just phones. There's nothing we're doing or that it's just phones. Weird. You have when you talk to your friend. Yegana Saltonpore joins us, President of the Council of International Students of Australia. Yegana Yegs, good morning.
Good morning.
Yeah, thanks so much for coming on. Are we capable of this if there was suddenly, 10,000 Chinese students turned up next week? Can we deal with that?
Well, to be honest, I think universities of different sizes are going to do their absolute best to accommodate. I don't think I've heard of a single university that doesn't or isn't trying their absolute best to see how they could better cater to these students and make sure that there's not too many bumps on the road. I don't doubt that there'll be some issues maybe moving forward, considering how this was such a sudden change. But I do have a lot of faith in our university system, and I do believe that they're trying their best.
Right. I suppose my first reaction, considering that we've spent so much time talking about rental and accommodation problems in Sydney over the last few months, was to go, well, what does this mean? What's accommodation for these students?
And I completely agree on that factor. I think the talk about the rental crisis it's just kind of been in the loop for the longest time, and obviously this would put just an extra strain on what already is such a large issue. And I think for me as well, it's not just where will all of these students live, and it's also the fact that if they do not find a place to live in time, will they therefore be at risk of exploitation? Will, landlords, for example, charge a lot more than, let's say, a rental unit may be worth, just because it's in higher demand. And we have seen this case with some areas. But I think it's just very unfortunate in terms of the rental crisis.
It must have been a very difficult time for students, not just from China, but from all over the world, dealing with the COVID years, dealing with, changing rules and changing aspects of university life.
Yeah, I think international students have been kind of going through it for, I guess, since COVID occurred, and even when borders opened. It's just been a little bit more stressful for the students and also for the academic staff to kind of, I guess, get used to these new conditions. I do know that a lot of students have decided to come back as soon as the borders did open, and we did see some strain on the system at the time. So I can imagine something like this, such a sudden change, would probably mimic similar circumstances.
Yeah, you heard what Merlin Crosley was saying before, that there has been a modification of the Chinese stance.
No, actually,
well,
I did.
So what he was suggesting was that it's the Chinese have said, look, if you can't get in or you can't enrol or the course isn't being offered, if you provide documentary proof of that, then we'll accept that as well. So if things don't start till second semester, the Chinese government is saying they're fine, they'll recognise that.
Well, to be honest, I think I would expect that part to be included in it, simply because I do believe that the government does acknowledge that not all circumstances will be doable at the moment, to see that they are accepting of circumstances that are out of the students' control is refreshing to hear.
Yegan Saltonpour is with us, President of the Council of International Students Australia. We're hearing also from Professor Merlin Crosley, Deputy Vice-Chancellor of Academic at the University of New South Wales. Merlin Crosley, is it reasonable in a sense for the Chinese government to say, look, we're not going to accept online education? What are they saying about online education?
Look, that's a very deep question. I do think that if you're an international student, if I was wanting to go somewhere, the immersive experience for international students is something very special that engenders international understanding and language development and so many things. I think it's reasonable for them to take that position, but we also believe it is possible to provide very high quality education online, and we're doing that as well. So I think many people will say online can be just as good and better for some degrees, but for the students coming here to Australia, if they want a degree from Australia and that experience, I think it's reasonable to say, okay, you should go and get that degree.
Yeah. Does it say something about Australian students as well? I mean, they should expect the university experience, the interaction, the face-to-face as well.
So we love seeing the students come back to campus. We're doing everything we can, and this is going to be a step in the right direction. It's all a bit quick, but it's the right thing.
Yeah, exactly. But I suppose what I'm saying is that, in a sense, the Chinese government said, look, online education isn't good enough. I don't know whether they're saying it about degrees in their own country as well, but is it really an inferior process to the experience of being at university?
I think for undergraduate degrees, I really love it when the students come face to face, and it's life-changing. They make new friendships, their perspectives change, they fledge the nest. For some postgraduate degrees, I think we have to recognise that not everyone can do this. And for some undergraduates as well, it's not accessible to everyone. So we'll always have a mixture. And I think we've learned so much in COVID. I think they'll be just as good, but it'll depend on the person, not the degree.
Yeah. Yegan Saltonpour, have you found, what have your members been saying? What have you found with online education?
I think going through online education myself, I was just at the end of finishing my undergrad in 2020 when we had just started online learning, and we still see it now. Obviously, there has been some improvements in how online learning occurs. Zoom has all of these very cool features now where you can have a whiteboard. It's not just watching a video. But I do believe that online learning has granted students, even myself, a comfort that we'd never experienced before. In the past, when I had to attend class, I had to physically attend class or have to watch that lecture online, at a later time. But now I have the freedom of being able to attend class from overseas if I'm having a family emergency. There are times where I'm at a doctor's appointment and I could just have, the online class in my ear while I'm waiting and don't have to miss out on the whole entire class. And I know a lot of students, specifically postgraduates, that, have families and have work outside of their degrees, but would also like to have to get this degree. And it's just granted them a freedom that we haven't really seen before. So I do believe that there are some very good aspects of online learning that I think we should maintain.
Yeah. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you.
Good to talk to you. Yegan Saltonpour is the President of the Council of International Students Australia, and Professor Merlin Crosley. Thanks for your time as well.
Thank you.
Deputy Vice-Chancellor of Academic at the University of New South Wales. Coming up to 8 minutes.
Drive. When have you had one of these summer holiday injuries?
With Richard Glover.
I was playing beach cricket with my 6-year-old and I took a spectacular outfield catch. I stubbed my toe and broke it.
You don't have to get your daughter out, okay?
Exactly.
Drive. Weekdays from 3:30.
The classic after Christmas father outfield cricket injury.
After 11 months of doing nothing.
Exactly, and does the hammy.
Let the 4-year-old win.
Exactly.
ABC Radio Sydney. Traffic. ABC Radio Sydney.
Let's get the latest. Alf Paranihes at the Transport Management Centre. What's happening, Alf?
James, down at Campbelltown Road approaching Queen Street, so in the CBD. One of 3 southbound lanes currently closed. That's the centre lane as a result of a breakdown. Also through Collerton, 2-car crash on the Great Western Highway, just near Roper Road in the left-hand lane, so exercise some caution through the area. Also through Zetland, 1 northbound lane closed in the Eastern Distributor, just near the tunnel entrance. That's causing some heavy traffic as a result, so allow some extra traffic travel time, and a bus has broken down at Artarmon at the Lane Cove Tunnel exit, coming through the Lane Cove Tunnel. So just take some care there. We're not seeing too much of a hassle in terms of traffic flow through that particular area. Buses are continuing to replace L1 light rail services between Central and Lilyfield. That's due to urgent overhead wiring repairs at Pemont. Services are still running between Lilyfield and Dulwich Hill, so do allow some extra time. Otherwise, elsewhere on public transport and across all other modes, running on all close to time. Best to get the latest updates before you travel at transportnsw.info. And for the latest on the roads, James, head to livetraffic.com.
Do we have a finish time on the L1 problems yet?
Still not at this stage. Buses continue to replace those services between Central and Lilyfield, though. So if you are catching a light rail or normally catch a light rail, do allow some extra travel time.
Alf, thanks so much. Alf Parony here at the Transport Management Centre with the latest there. The couple of comments coming in on some of the things we've been talking about. We're just talking about the what might be a sudden influx of Chinese students back into Sydney. Universities should be required to provide an on-campus accommodation to every international student. The effect on the rental market is ridiculous for average Australians who to support the I'm just trying to sort this sentence out. The effect on the rental market is ridiculous for average Australians, and this is all in support of a business model of modern universities. James, I equate clubs management and their poker machine addiction. We've been talking earlier about the removal of Josh Landis from the job of CEO of Clubs New South Wales. I equate their poker machine addiction to the multinational gas and fossil fuel industry. Don't want to give up the billions, even for the betterment of others, says Liza. So thanks so much for your comments, as always, on the text service. 6 minutes to 8, Sarah McDonald joins us. Good morning, Ms. McDonald.
Good morning, Mr. Valentine. We're very formal this morning, are we?
I believe so.
Right.
I think that's only appropriate.
Okay, we've got your posh pants on today, have we?
I think so. Every now and again,
Right.
I think we should try a more formal,
Shall
interaction.
we? Sir Valentine actually sounds good.
Do you think?
That has a ring to it.
Yes.
I'm thinking by the way you're responding, you're loving that a lot.
I've always thought Lord Valentine
Lord,
myself.
would you like a cigar instead of a pen there
thank
that
you
you're
so much.
sticking in your mouth?
Now that I'm just dreaming of my morning Cuban. Oh, it could be very pleasant, I think. That's right,
You'll
right.
get gout, Sir Valentine.
Is that what happens?
You know you'll get gout.
Did the cigar lead to gout?
Oh, they used to, what did they were so unhealthy. They'd have their cigars and their port and,
I
they
know,
got
but
gout.
I do have a sneaking, affection for that. Darling, I won't be home. I'm staying at my club.
Oh, you're going to your club that no women shall set forth upon, unsullied by the ladies.
It sounds
of
sort of quite
Sydney, your
good, but
club.
then it seems to be nothing else but sitting around the large leather Chesterfield and, and harumphing at the Times.
You'd be bored out of your brain. You'd last 1 minute.
Do you know what I suspect?
What?
I'm staying at my club was a coverall for lots of other activity.
Yeah, what?
Gambling.
An issue we've faced for many years then, since the harumphing.
I think there was partying going on, and then you might end up at the club for the evening. But between...
Maybe some darlings were like, yeah, good, stay out.
Yeah, but betwixt
Don't
times,
care.
I think there was lots of other
Have
stuff.
fun at your club.
Yeah.
I hope they were having fun
Exactly.
wherever they were at the same time.
Yeah.
How did we get into that weird space?
I like wherever it goes. I do like a tangential conversation. Look, I'll just puff here a little on my Winston Churchill, and you can tell us what you're up to this
Those
morning.
days are gone.
I know.
Yeah. Well, look, after your St Mary's piece this morning, we will track what's happening with the Supreme Court hearing this application by the police this morning about whether the protest by the other group, the Community Action for Rainbow Rights, will go ahead. I'm not sure they've met with police. Basically, you have to ask permission for police and meet with them now to have a protest. So we're trying to find out what's happening with that this morning. And given what's going on with the gambling issues in Clubs New South Wales, what sort of unique opportunity is there now for gambling reform in New South Wales? How have they done it in Tasmania? Did they have a trial? What did they find? I mean, no reports...
Is it cashless in Tasmania?
Well, they're not yet, but by the end of 2024. the
Right.
Liberal government in Tasmania is introducing the cashless gaming card. So how have they gone about doing it? What pressure was there upon it? Was there a trial? So we haven't heard back about our trial yet. We're trying to follow that on Mornings as well, because there has been a trial.
There has been a trial, but
Yes.
I think the trial has been, if you would like to play cashless, please play cashless. So it's a sort of the trial you have when you're not really having a trial.
That's what we're trying to find
Yeah,
out
yeah,
about
yeah.
that as well today. Plus rubbish. You know, we were talking about the rats the other day.
Yeah.
So there's strike in Sydney Council area the last 2 Fridays. There will be again this Friday. So if you live in the inner city, you're noticing a lot of rubbish build up and no wonder there's rats. But it's just not unique to Sydney. This is happening in lots of council areas.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I just had a lovely conversation over my breakfast with Brendan about maggots and flies in his area. Thanks for that.
Why did you say it? There's other people having breakfast, you know.
I'm sorry.
You didn't need to say that.
All right, back to little Lord Fauntleroy with his cigar then.
Oh, I don't
Okay,
think
put
that's
this
necessary.
image in your brain instead.
See what happens when you put women on the air? Huh? They come out with all sorts of rubbish. Huh? That's a problem now.
Steve, away from our club.
I think the other thing that's interesting in the cashless gaming that we want to get to is I hear 2 different stories. One, the transition time is years to turn all these poker machines into cashless gaming
Well, it
cards.
is in Tasmania.
2, all club members have a card which they can use to tap onto the machine to get, frequent club benefits.
Right.
How hard is it? Why is it so hard? There's already a card attached to the machines. So, and I mean, it is one of those sort of things going, really? Years? I mean, how long did it take retail to...
Well, it's the technology, it's all those sort of things. But
I
the
can order a
limits-
Square reader right now and it'll do this sort of stuff. Come on,
Right,
honestly.
Yeah.
So I think that's an interesting issue to try to explore.
Why it takes so
We're only
long.
talking about it last night in the
There's a
club.
lot, were you? Did you have this conversation over your
yes.
kippers?
Yes, exactly.
What were you eating?
I had the beef Wellington.
Did you? Of
All
course
right.
you did.
It's Tuesday. I always have the beef Wellington. I don't know what. Washed down the Chateau Latif.
Yeah, with
I
some
had
dried up desiccated Brussels
4
sprouts.
gallons of Chateau Latif just to wash it out. Very good.
You do that way too well. It's a little bit frightening.
I know. It's sort of somewhere between a British parliamentarian and Mike Carlton.
Yeah. I'm just not a club person. I'm like Groucho Marx. What did he say? Something about clubs?
I don't want to be a member of a club that'd have me as a member.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a strange one, that one. But
I'm with him.
Yeah, exactly. Sarah will be looking at everything fresh and with great vigour from 8:30 here on ABC Radio Sydney. You'll have the news and AM coming along in a moment or two. So enjoy everything that we offer and everything you need from a radio. We'll be right here on ABC Radio Sydney throughout the day. It's 8 o'clock, news and AM.
It's nearly 8 o'clock and school zones are coming into force. Look out for the signs. Slow down to 40 and keep an eye out for us. Let's keep our school roads safe where we live.
A message from ABC Radio Sydney.